Fast and Furious, the icon, the legend, the moment, an absolute mecca of pop culture that gave us Corona.
You can have any brew you want, as long as it's a Corona.
And family.
Toast! Toast. Salute, mi familia. Salute. Salute.
And most importantly, an abnormal amount of bald representation. Now, I personally hate cars. Okay, like maybe I don't exactly hate them, but as someone born, raised, and currently living in a place with an easily accessible public transit system, I do hold a certain disdain towards these huge chunks of metal that crowd the streets, honk at ungodly hours of the morning and night, and the majority of them look like they were designed by an AI model that was trained on like a sample of 3 pictures at most. You know, the song Fast Cars by Buzzcocks really hits close to home for me. And even though I am half man on my father's side and half a decent driver on my mother's, 99.99999% of cars inspire nothing but annoyance in me. I mean, I literally wrote this intro while on the train, which is obviously the superior form of transit, and to my mostly American audience, I'm really sorry that Amtrak is the way it is. There's nothing I can personally do. So naturally, when the 2-week winter holiday break hit me after a particularly tough semester, spent wondering where my academic career is going and whether I should be allowed to have one at all, I decided to relax by marathoning Fast and Furious. You know, the Car Go Fast franchise.
What? I could be straight.
Oh my god, a football! Throw!
But I did not just watch all the movies for the sake of it. My objective lied within a different field, a different track. I don't know how to make car jokes. The only time I've been behind a wheel was when I was 7, and I almost drove the car into a stack of hay for shits and giggles. And I would do it again. Point is, I wanted to find the best racing or chasing in the entire franchise. One might even say I was on the hunt for the fastest and most furious of them all. I doubt that when Ken Lee wrote that one article about street racing, he knew that it would turn into a whole franchise where cars jump out of a plane with parachutes strapped to them. But here we are, I guess. If you think about it, Fast and Furious is essentially Sex in the City with cars instead of questionable situationships. Dominic is Charlotte, Roman is Samantha, Letty is Miranda, and Brian is Carrie. I will not be taking notes. These two are widely popular franchises, known for their trashiness, yet beloved by die-hard fans. They have a core cast of characters that are essentially family to each other, despite not being blood relatives. The two also largely deal with the same topics: love, both platonic and romantic, life and the different roads we take, loss and grief, identity, hell. Even the class divide is there. And these movies are both very reflective of and informed by the zeitgeist of their release years. Thus, going through the movies one by one without contextualizing them in any way would diminish the experience. And that's why I decided to not only pepper in some fun facts extracted from interviews and directors' commentaries, but also add a little segment recapping the main pop culture moments before talking about the movie at hand. But that's not it. What's the franchise really about? No, not about the 2 C's, Corona and cars, duh. It's about family. So what we're gonna do is put our lab coats on and quantify the familyness of every single installment in order to figure out the single most of the f's, as well as try to answer a simple question. Does the movie pass the Bechdel test? You'd be fucking surprised how many of them do not. I'm also going to be ranking each installment of the f's and choosing the coolest car and song from the soundtrack of the movie to determine the ultimate winners in the end of video tournament, because my desire to rank and quantify outweighs my will to not fry the ever-loving shit out of my laptop when attempting to edit this monster. With that out of the way, gentlemen, start your engines and may the baldest win! Listen, I thought this whole thing was gonna be easy because it's the Car Go Fast movie franchise. Turns out, nothing is easy here. Like, to quote Macklemore, there's layers to this shit, player. tiramisu. In 1998, Ken Lee wrote an article entitled Racer X for Vibe magazine. In it, the author gave the mainstream public an outline of the New York street racing scene, or, in his own words, a growing legion of young speed junkies terrorizing the back alleys, highways, and legal racetracks. That same article caught the eye of someone at Universal Studios, and the film rights were auctioned off pretty fast and pretty furious. According to Lee himself, I think for 10 seconds they considered me to write the script. But it ended when they asked what I thought the story was, and I said, "Did you read this story?" At some point, Universal approached Rob Cohen about this story, who initially was like, "What? A Cargo Fast movie? Like, where's the plot? Where's the drama?" And then he quickly found out where the plot and the drama was, after fucking around with the very world he was supposed to immortalize on the big screen. As he shared in 2001, I stood there like a duck out of water and witnessed this amazing world firsthand. It was at that point that I realized that here was a story worth telling. Though in the oral history of Fast and Furious, the movie's producer Neil Moritz said he was the one contacted by the studio, explaining, "I was making the skulls with Paul and Rob, and we were looking for another movie to do together, and Universal approached me about this article in Vibe." Whatever the case is, and whoever was approached first, the project landed in the hands of Morris, Cohen, and Walker, who wanted to do something either about racing cars or where Walker was an undercover cop. Pretty soon, the movie drifted away from the original article, but kind of closer to the real thing at the same time. That sounds, girl, so confusing. Okay, here's the rundown. The street racing culture is said to have originated in LA, but Racer X was focused on the New York scene. The original article is also heavily watered down because Lee had written it for, and I quote, "a family paper," so the editors didn't want him to write about the criminal aspect of it. The first Fast and Furious takes place in LA and deals with street racers who like doing crime as a little side project. So in moving away from the source, the film at the same time became a truer reflection of the street racing reality. The production went through a bunch of titles: Racer X, Street Wars, Redline, which can be seen in the behind-the-scenes pictures on the clapperboards, and the most questionable of them all, Race Wars. You know, I originally wanted to title the video rating every race in Fast and Furious, but upon hearing that exact string of words, a friend that I was sharing the idea with stopped dead in his fucking tracks, turned around, and hit the rock face at me. So, you know, I figured that I should probably think the name over. Neil Moritz, the producer, found the solution to the impending race wars crisis when watching a documentary about Roger Corman. And I have, of course, watched the 1954 original and will be recapping and rating it in the bonus video over on my Patreon for all those interested in something released 70 years ago and having ratings that scream, run away, drive away, doesn't matter. Any form of transportation will do as long as you don't watch this movie because it's bad. One more thing that I just have to get out of the way before diving into the movie is that Timothy Olyphant was supposed to play Dominic Toretto, which in my books would have been a crime against humanity, because just try and imagine a world in which the Dominic Toretto has hair. I need a minute to reflect. I need to drink some water. I need to calm down.
6.5 hours later.
Okay, so back to business. In order to properly rank these racing and chase scenes, I've come up with 4 criteria: plot importance, soundtrack, cars, and cinema. While the first 2 are kind of obvious, I feel like I should clarify that cars just stands for how cool the cars look, and I'm obviously qualified to judge because I was really into Pimp My Ride as a child. And cinema refers to the general beauty of the shots, camera work, graphics, etc. Basically, whether the scene is giving us visuals or not. All 4 get a score on the scale of 0 through 10, and the total determines the tier placement. I also have the power of putting stuff in S tier because this is my video, and if you haven't realized it yet, all this shit is completely arbitrary. I also recreated this tier list on like the tier list making website, so if you want to play along, feel free to. The link will be in the description and should currently be up on the screen as a QR code. Without any more further ado, let's open up a can of Corona and put the pedal to the metal. Don't actually drink and drive, kids. Don't drive at all. Be fucked up on the bus like an adult. Welcome to Pop Culture Corner. To get a full picture of what the movie felt like and meant, we of course need to discuss what was big in 2001 pop culture. Something that really shook people around the world and defined the future for decades. It is, of course, me being born, and then nothing else happened. I'm only joking, of course. There was something else of the same utmost importance. Gerard Way formed the legendary band My Chemical Romance for no reason, because nothing else happened. Recap, Shasha, take it away. Thank you, Pop Culture Shasha. This just in from a reporter on the scene. Fast and Furious is camp for straight men. Let's investigate. The movie starts off with 3 matchingly modified Honda Civics hijacking a truck driver carrying a bunch of expensive-ish electronics. One thing about gangs in these movies is they're gonna have a theme. They're gonna have swag. They're also gonna do so much unnecessary stuff, like use a damn grappling hook, the spy gear, the car going under the truck, the plot importance, the matching Honda Civics, 10s and 9s pretty much across the board. 0 for the lack of music though. So the overall score comes out to be 26 out of 40. A solid B tier. Then we meet blue-eyed stare heavyweight champ Paul Walker playing Brian. Shit! Who's just constantly hanging out at this fucking cafe, eating tuna sandwiches in an attempt to both rizz up this girl named Mia and take down the gang we saw in the previous scene. See, he's not only blue-eyed, he's a cop too. Like, pick a struggle, man.
Hello, officer. How long have you been a cop?
And I'm not just hating for the sake of hating. In his review of the movie, Roger Ebert wrote, Mia serves tuna salad and white bread, no crusts, every day to Brian, who looks a little like white bread, no crusts himself. And while Brian is giving Mia the Miley Cyrus stare, Dominic Toretto's crew shows up and we meet Vince, the walk-in testosterone of the group, Leon, he's just kind of there, Jesse the crash out, and Letty, the girl boss. Short story short, Vince goes, no one likes the tuna here. And then they get into a fight because a grown man eating white bread, no crust tuna sandwiches on a daily basis is, in fact, suspicious.
Try Fat Burger from now on. You get yourself a double cheese with fries for $2.95. Fat.
Brian shows up at a race, which has the highest soundtrack density of the entire movie, and bets his car in a competition with the bold and the beautiful star, Dominic Toretto. There's also Ja Rule, who's taken part in this whole ordeal just for a chance at a threesome. And when the guy who literally bet his car overtakes him, Ja Rule is only mildly disappointed and just goes, no. The effects are genuinely awful, but like in a sweet 2000s kind of way. The aftermath of the race is like crucial to the plot, and the cars are literally shooting fire out of exhaust pipes. Plus, it's our first time seeing Nas, but, and there is a but, there's no soundtrack to the race itself, which is a crime way more serious than some silly truck hijacking. So this one only gets a sad 25 out of 40 rating. The cops pull up and everyone scatters and Dom is left alone, but Brian shows up in his fuck-ass car that's like actively falling apart, and they get away from the pigs and accidentally into the territory of a rival gang. There's also this scene that I didn't qualify as a chase or a race because it's too short, too non-eventful, and is not treated as any of the aforementioned categories. Once again, every gang here has a theme, and this one has A, Johnny Tran's face card, and B, motorcycles, which Dom refers to as crotch rockets. Also, they got guns, and that's capital G, capital U, capital N, capital S, guns, which they use to blow up Brian's car. That forces the blue-eyed 1,000-yard stare and the baldy to walk home on foot. Then there's the whole party scene that is essentially just a backdrop for the first Corona ad of the franchise.
And you definitely need a shower.
The next day, our scary-looking blondie pulls up to Dom's garage with a new car that looks like shit, and everyone's like, this car looks like shit, but it has a good engine or something. Once again, I don't know shit about cars, and you couldn't pay me to care. The point is, the car is not as shit as it looks, and they start preparing it for an event called Race Wars. One question, did no one on the team or the set catch that? Race Wars? And as if Race Wars was not enough, We get a sudden Dominic Toretto lore drop about his dead dad and how he was banned from the tracks for almost killing a guy. I thought this was the Cargo Fast movie. Brian finally secures a date with Mia, and she, unsurprisingly, is a good driver, and the pig is shocked because girl no can drive car, I guess, even though she's like literally Dom's sister. Brian continues investigating by sneaking into the competitors' garages while everyone is out and about. And he gets caught by Vince, who's been hating the way that man talks, walks, and dresses since like forever. Vince is actually the inventor of homoerotic hostility. You can Google it. And if you don't want to Google it, I'm just going to tell you that when he catches Brian sneaking into Hector's garage, he says that Blondie, and I quote, moans like a cop. You fuck a lot of cops, buddy? Talk about sleeping with the enemy. Brian, being the slimy cop he is, lies that he's trying to get intel on the rival Specs, and the crew goes on to break and enter into all the other gang's working spaces, and they see a suspicious amount of electronics in Mr. Johnny Facecard's garage.
A garage full of DVD players and generally psychotic behavior.
Which Mr. Oink Oink then reports to his superiors, who are all like, oh, we gotta go! And send entire SWAT squads to Tran's house. The gag? He's not the hijacker. The dude just really likes buying insane amounts of electronics for fun. Sue him. Then Brian's boss gets pissed and goes, you fucked up. You only got 36 hours now. And like, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? You know, not to defend him or anything, but he wasn't the one to send the raids. So what's with the class traitor on class traitor crime? At this point, an hour and 5 whole minutes into the first movie is when the word family gets dropped for the first time in the franchise.
There's all kinds of family, Brian. And that's a choice you're gonna have to make.
And not even by Dom Toretto. The scandal. Finally, like an hour after the first one, we get the second race of the car racing movie, and that's Ferrari versus the ex-Fugly car. This one has knockoff Limp Bizkit playing in the background, which is better than no music, so we'll give it a 4 out of 10. The plot importance and cinematography are non-existent, but I really appreciate the fact that both cars have a bald dude wearing shades in them. And one of the cars is literally a boring, yawning, sloppy black Ferrari. So this one gets a whopping 10 out of 40. Brian's like, okay, we gotta lock in. So he says to Dom he wants in on whatever the gang's doing because the tens of thousands of dollars that they spend on cars definitely do not come from selling those fuck-ass tuna sandwiches.
I like the tuna here. Bullshit, asshole. No one likes a tuna here.
Toretto tells him he's gotta go through race wars first, which, like, he's a cop. Don't give him any ideas, Dom. At Race Wars, Letty is challenged to a race by a dude who's not only sexist, but also drives an ugly car. Letty's pink car is cunty, even though for this race they use the same wannabe Prodigy song that's been playing for at least 3 minutes before that, and it's not that important to the plot, other than reminding us that girl drive car. So the overall score is 13 out of 40. And then Jesse, the mechanic who's always either a second away from a crash out or going through one, goes, oh, let me bat my dad's race car and race Johnny the face car Tran.
It's alright, I ain't losing.
And then he fucking loses. Of course he does. But let's rate the race. The soundtrack is once again that generic Prodigy knockoff that you'd find on a royalty-free music website if you typed in the words car racing fast music. And at that point in the movie, I was so over it. So 1 out of 10. I guess it's like relatively important to the plot, but the cinema of it all is not cinema-in. I'm not a fan of Jesse's car, but I can appreciate the vision. When it comes to Mr. Facecard's car though, why does it look like my grandma picked out the designs? Is that a car or a Christmas tree ornament? 1 extra point because you cannot spell Facecard without car. 13 out of 40. After that absolute humiliation of a race, Jesse just straight up bounces, and Tran pulls up to the Bald and the Beautiful gang and accuses them of sending the cops. That's the second time the word family is mentioned in the entire movie, by the way.
Disrespecting my whole family.
And not even in the capital F family type of way, but when referencing literal relatives, so I'm not counting that. Dominic then tries to beat the shit out of Johnny, which leads to nothing. The same evening, Brian goes snooping and sees the team, sans Mia, take off in an unknown direction. So, like a normal, reasonable person, he goes and outs himself as a pig to his girl.
No cops at the Toretto's house. Rule number 1.
No pigs, no pigs.
Oink for you, man.
And starts pursuing the Egghead and company, who are headed to another heist, which is also the next race. The entire scene is incredible. We've got mistimed jumps, saw trap level mishaps, a fucking shotgun, everyone straight up yelling and cars passing under the truck again, but no music. How fucking disappointing is that? 28 out of 40. Brian does the first commendable thing as a cop. He calls the medevac in order to save Vince, who, if you think about it, just got payback for being homophobic earlier. Everyone's A, shocked, and B, pissed. So they just leave Brian in the middle of nowhere, because there's no crime worse than being a blue-eyed freak. And like a freak he is, Blondie shows up at Dom's doorstep to have a heart-to-heart, which gets interrupted by Jesse finally returning, while still crashing out, which then gets interrupted by Tran and his lace-face Cardi cousin displaying
Generally psychotic behavior.
and fucking shooting the only reasonable person in this whole team. But you know what that means? Another chase scene. The generally psychotic brothers ditch the ugly Christmas ornament-ass car in favor of black and red bikes, which, as everyone knows, are the two greatest colors to ever color. Everyone's flying over LA hills. The bullets are endless. We hear yet another annoying, cheap car chase bit, but a few violins do come in at the very end, and Brian's car looks like it's smiling. Look how adorable. 9 out of 10 for plot importance, so that brings the total to 30 out of 40. It's unclear whether Johnny and Lance are dead, but they seem pretty fucking dead to me. Brian puts the responsibility of calling 911 to try and save the man he shot on a random passerby, which is peak cop behavior, and chases after Dominic, who waits for him at a red light, which prompts the next and last racing scene. And what can I say? The 2000s video effects are so back. Dom's car is actively disintegrating mid-race. They cross the train tracks milliseconds before a fucking train, because what else would be on their train tracks? Toretto's driving the iconic Dad car. The only thing lacking is the soundtrack. So overall, it's a solid 28 out of 40. Dom's car gets hit by a truck and flips a few too many times for his survival to be believable or realistic, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that Brian gives him the keys to his little smiling Coral Supra, which lets the body get away before the police get there. In a scene hidden after the end credits, we see that Dom's chilling in Mexico. And that's it for the Fast and the Furious. Now, is Fast and the Furious particularly good? No. But it knows exactly what it is, and oh boy, does it entertain. And if you're willing to suspend your disbelief to the highest possible extent, you'll see how with the power of friendship and NOS, you can do anything. Lisa Schwarzbaum, a movie critic for Entertainment Weekly, wrote the following when defending the movie. See, what's refreshingly unwinky about Fast and Furious is that guys snarl and bark at one another, chicks circle their wagons, and sleek, souped-up cars zoom down LA boulevards, risking death to the stunt drivers behind the wheels. Nothing else matters. Not even good camera work or a decent soundtrack. What you see is what you get. And what you get goes by real fast. Other summer movies should be so modest. So, what about some hard-hitting data? Now, even though the creators will try and tell you that it was family from the beginning, do not believe their woke propaganda. The first technically has 2 mentions of family, but one of them means literal relatives, so only one qualifies. And it doesn't even come from any of the crew. Lies. Fucking lies, accusations. And to no one's surprise, the movie does not pass the Bechdel test. Because, as we all know, flying cars are okay, but women talking to each other is just something the writer's imagination was not capable of. And that is after Michelle Rodriguez had the writers work with her in order to make the female characters less two-dimensional. Do with that what you will, because just how much more two-dimensional can this get? But that's not all. Let's talk real serious business now. So I was really torn between the Big Dig Squad car and the Smiling Supra. Because I mean, look at it, and then look at them side by side. I'm gonna give you guys a little spoiler when I say that the Big Dig Squad car is here to stay, and that cute little Coral Supra is one of a kind. When it comes to the music side of things, if you were to listen to the soundtrack as a standalone album, you'd probably not be able to guess that it's part of the franchise of all things. Honestly, like, it's pretty good, but definitely weaker than some of the other jams that we're going to be discussing later. And it definitely does not score high on my things that would go hard in a car list. And we similarly had two very strong contenders in this category, but I will admit that even though Rolling is fine and like ridiculous in the context of the movie, Furious just goes incredibly hard. It's a very good song to yell along to.
Will somebody just give me a cigarette?
Get him a cigarette.
Don't get him a cigarette. But you quit.
Yeah, I did quit. Just give me a cigarette.
Get him a cigarette.
No!
The Fast and the Furious, which the producer Neil Moritz referred to as the little movie nobody really cared about, knocked it out of the fucking park thanks to its refreshingly straightforward approach. Over just 3 weeks, it earned over $100 million domestically on a modest $38 million budget. So, despite Vin Diesel's pleas to pull the brakes on the Hollywood sequel machine, Too Fast, Too Furious was on its way. In the words of Chad Lindbergh, who played the ever struggle-busting Jesse, of course Jesse died, and then they make 9 sequels. And it wasn't only successful financially, it also encouraged impressionable kids to do illegal shit. An LAPD officer told The Guardian that the cops see a spike in this kind of activity when Car Go Fast movies come out. Before we move on, however, I need to let you in on a little secret. The original had an alternative ending where Brian is let go by the LAPD for some fucking reason, because apparently him fumbling the mission and betraying his cop buddies is okay and not that deep. So our no crust guy goes to see Mia and beg her to take him back, which, as the ending implies, she does, because a class traitor boyfriend is this upcoming summer hottest accessory. They also took out all the scenes containing sexual content that went beyond sucking face, which accidentally made the movie's kind of iconic asexual representation, because according to my asexual friend, only asexuals can be into nerd shit like this. They did keep a take where Dominic picks up Letty using the weirdest ass-grabbing technique I've ever seen. Like, this gesture is forever imprinted on my brain.
I don't know why I was put on this case, but I do know one thing. I will solve it. I am, of course, definitely not Sasha with a cheap mustache glued on, doing a funny voice. Vin Diesel's bald head and lack of enunciation have been haunting me ever since I first pressed play on the totally not pirated The Fast and the Furious. But there has to be something that can answer my questions, and so I will keep digging, even if it makes me bald.
On a real note, I'm actually glad the kiss and makeup ending did not make it into The Fast and the Furious, because without it, we would not have had the absolute masterpiece that is Too Fast, Too Furious. Pop culture corner. So what happened in 2003? First of all, I turned 2 years old, and this is definitely not the same picture I've used in the previous chapter. Don't fucking look it up. 2003 was truly the year of questionable sequels. I mean, just think about it. Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde, Freddy vs. Jason, and Final Destination 2 all came out in 2003. And then nothing else happened because politics and global crises were invented in 2008. So let's discuss the most important part first. This movie, A, does not have Vin Diesel, and B, is somehow even more homoerotic than the original.
Every great movie is gay. That's undoubtedly. There is not a movie that is not gay if it's great.
The title, however, simply too iconic. Rob Cohen was swapped out for John Singleton of Boys in the Hood fame. This is before The Fast and the Furious and Justin Lin bond was truly established, so we get a nice tasting plate in the original trilogy. After the events of the first movie, Brian runs to Miami, of all places. There's actually a short movie that kind of explains what happened between 1 and tufa. And by way of terrible mere CGI, it shows us that Brian flees before his ex-pig buddies can catch him. And then, on his way to Miami, once again, of all places, Blondie races for money in random states. Then there's the whole him being saved by a hot girl who encourages crime debacle, but that's kind of irrelevant. The ending card reads, "To be continued," by the way. Isn't that, you know, a little too many twos? We got a whole new crew. There's Taj, played by Ludacris, who's low-key the most interesting character of the movie. There's Suki, who drives and vogues at the same time. And there's Jimmy, who's this movie's Jesse. That is to say, he knows cars and always seems to be on the verge of a crash out. Considering he has to deal with Brian fucking O'Connor on a daily basis, I don't blame him. The movie opens with a race and with a line that describes the entire plot in 3 words. It's Brian. Shit, it's Brian. Went double fucking platinum in this household. Even though the scene is way too long, I loved the atrocious green screen and generally horrible looking graphics. The plot of the race itself was pretty exciting, albeit not that important to the events of the movie. There's also a great moment where one of the drivers crushes straight into the product placement.
Here we go.
Just Suki's pink car alone deserves a 10 out of 10, but we are still in no soundtrack territory, so the score comes out to 28 out of 40. After the race, Brian is caught by US Customs agents.
Ricky, when I catch you, Ricky. Ricky, when I catch you, Ricky.
They get him by fucking up his car with some weird sci-fi grappling hook and tell him that he has to help them bring down this drug lord named Carter Verone, who's kind of like if Tony Montana only did downers and was also devoid of any sort of personality. Blondie might have lost the badge, but not the audacity, so he flexes his car knowledge on everyone in the cringiest dude bro way possible.
Could you tell me right quick, what would be better motor for my Skyline, a Gallo 12 or a Gallo 24?
The 24.
I didn't know pizza places made motors.
And demands that they let him work with an old friend of his. We cut to a demolition derby where the friend in question, Roman Pierce,
Is this the thanks that I get for putting you bitches on?
played by Tyrese Gibson, is having the time of his life destroying the shit out of cars until Brian shows up. The movie wastes no time establishing Roman's motivation by showing us his ankle monitor. So Mr. Bleached Highlights approaches him and we find out that the two have some sort of beef that revolves around the Blondie becoming a cop. It only takes a little homoerotic fighting and a few verbal quips for Mr. Italian Capital to be convinced. And that's also where the real villain of the movie, Paul Walker's Black Scent, comes in.
I said forget about it, cuz.
As Charles Taylor writes, Walker can be fairly hilarious, unintentionally, that is, as he tries to talk ghetto, like an Abercrombie and Fitch model who's gone shopping for hip-hop CDs.
When the chow is tea but the finnet is gag, sis, I'm dead as a child. Girl. Real.
Considering the lack of actual jokes within the movie, Paul Walker saying
Pockets ain't empty, cuz.
with his whole chest might just be the comedic highlight of Too Fast, Too Little Vin Diesel. Then we're finally introduced to the last main character of the movie, Monica, who is pretty much useless in terms of the plot, but other than being useless, she's also Brian's love interest and Eva Mendes, which I guess is a win. One more little note. This movie is so confusing when it comes to the ages of the characters. Like Mr. Mob Boss Verone has a baby face that makes it impossible to know how old he is. Monica is very MILF-coded, and Brian and Rome are anywhere from their mid-20s to early 30s, but we never get a solid confirmation of anything. I guess the Fast and the Furious characters exist outside of the confines of time. Mothernica is actually an undercover customs agent fake dating Verone, and she gets our dudes a chance to work for Mr. Tony Blandana. She also gets them fancy new cars with one of the license plates reading Hater. Someone alert Kendrick Lamar right now, cause he might have competition all the way down in Florida.
He did the stare and drive on you, didn't he? He got that from me.
When they show up to, get started on their job, Carter says they first have to do unpaid work in order to get a chance to do paid work for him in the future.
My red Ferrari was confiscated yesterday and it sits in an impound lot about 20 miles from here. What is important is the package I left in the glove box. The first team back here with the package will have an opportunity to work for me.
R.I.P. Verone, you would have loved LinkedIn and corporate culture. The tryouts lead us to the second race of the movie, which might just be one of the best ones in the entire franchise. There's a shitty 2000s CGI cable montage. There's the pissing contest that is the reverse drive and stare. There's the purple hater car. The only thing lacking is the music, but even with that, we hit a solid 34 out of 40. Of course, the dynamic duo wins this one, but then cops show up. Roman, being the realest character of them all, just starts full on shooting at them. And that's how we find out that the swaggy cars have more bugs in them than Paris did in 2023. The questionable relationship brothers return to Verone, who reveals the package they almost got fucking shot over contained nothing but a cigar, and tells them that they'll get 100 grand for the job. Rome requests 100 grand per person, to which Mr. Unconvincing Drug Lord tells them to meet him at a club later that day, because that's a very normal answer. In the meantime, the Dumb and Dumber get new cars that have no GPS trackers on them by racing these two other dudes for pink slips. Let's cut to the race. See what I did there? The cinema is, once again, uninspired and not even bad enough to be entertaining. The scene is simply too long. It's supposed to be crucial to the plot, but there are so many ways to get new cars that it just feels like they needed a racing scene in the middle of the movie in case the audience forgot that this is, in fact, too forced to believe. The music comes in at like the last fourth of the scene. Honestly, cute cars is the only thing this part has going for it, so we hit our lowest low so far with 16 out of 40. Boom, clap, cut to the bar. We get a straight up torture scene that just shows us that Verone and Monica are certified freaks. It's also used to establish that the local cops are crooked, but like also try to get Verone, so not crooked. I don't know, man. At that point, my head just started to hurt because of how much this movie was trying to force plot. Like, the creators didn't know that car go fast would have been enough. In the morning, after an altercation with Verone's meatheads, Rome and Brian get started on the job. Capital T, capital J, the job. Which leads to the longest and most unnecessarily plot twist-filled chase scene of the movie. The cinematography can't be described as anything other than everybody's so creative. And we get like 5 track changes thanks to the sheer length of this behemoth of a scene. There are literal hundreds of cars. It's pretty crucial to the plot, but girl, so confusing. 34 out of 40. Let's move on. The highlights of this whole thing are A, and B, yet another necessarily serious plot twist. Long story short, we find out that Verone knew all along that Monica was an undercover agent and was always 2 steps ahead. He then intends to kill Mr. Blue-Eyed Freak, but then Roman shows up just in time and spits on a dude mid-fight. Once again, he's the realest to ever do it. And saves his friend who he has weird tension with, but we're not going to discuss that.
I'm just saying, the bickering would be solved with a kiss.
Uninspired Tony Montana proceeds to power the boat and sail, which leads to the shortest, yet possibly greatest, chase scene. Finally, the Car Go Fast movie does the Car Go Fast thing, and we get to witness Mr. Italian Capital and Mr. Pig jump off a ramp and land on the boat in a car. You can really do anything if you have the power of friendship and enough nos, huh? Lives were changed. People were gagged. Some say our fragile human minds are still unable to process this fully. No soundtrack and not nearly enough cars, so 26 out of 40 overall. Verone whips out a shotgun. If I had a nickel for every time a shotgun was fired at the protagonists in the last act of a Fast and Furious movie, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot. But it's weird that we're going 2 for 2. But then all is well and our guys get him and friendship wins and Brian once again does not get the girl. Brian and Rome make up and say that they're gonna open a garage together in Miami. And all is well and Brian being a class traitor is somehow okay, I guess. In a 2003 interview, John Singleton said he wanted to make the movie as new as he can, change it all up with a whole new cast and new cars and new location, and promised that it was going to be a whole different kind of film in the way that it is shot and the way that it looks and the way that it feels. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure whether that's a good thing. Like, the change up on Brian's character and his weird black scent is not a favorite of mine, even though
I said forget about it, cuz.
Is objectively hilarious coming from Mr. Blue-Eyed 1,000-yard stare Paul Walker.
Paul is what you consider the epitome of a white boy.
At the same time, Ludacris
Never been Illuminati, only Illuminati. R.I.P. John Singleton. You never have to flex when you earn every one of your Fast and Furious checks.
and Tyrese
Goddamn fool, man.
I know!
are great fits for the franchise and this one film in particular. But the pacing is all off, and it seems like Too Fast, Too Furious is taking itself too seriously and trying to do too much. So it ends up being, as Peter Bradshaw wrote for The Guardian, too ridiculous for words.
That's funny.
You can yap all you want, but let's look at real, quantifiable numbers. This movie has exactly 0 mentions of family. Not in passing, not when talking about relatives, not in the capital of family type of way. Nothing. Nichts. Nada. Real. Niczego. Big old 0. And let me tell you, it's not looking good for the family index so far. We are averaging 0.5 families per movie. No Corona plugs in this one either. Is this really Fast and Furious? Speaking of things the movie does not have, the ability to pass the Bechdel test. Again, really? How hard can it be?
I was really like hard on her in terms of like, hey, you're the only chick that's gonna be racing, so you really gotta hold it down.
Has the director ever met a woman? Let's discuss. There are 2 named female characters, Suki and Monica. There's no interaction between them. Let's hope and pray that we get it in the next film. And as Scott put in their piece for Taipei Times, Mendes and Devon Aoki have some lines to say, and Aoki is even permitted to drive, but mostly the women, just like the cars, are around too few adolescent male fantasies and are similarly ogled. Over to you, Ranking Shasha. Thank you, Counting Shasha. The Tufa soundtrack is, in my opinion, a way better fit for the movie than the first one. I feel like Ludacris's silly, goofy aura and approach are in line with the general ridiculousness going on. Now, let's not mention some of the songs that are not available and instead focus on what we have. And what we have is an absolute masterpiece of a lyric that goes, honestly, same. But the real jam is obviously the one and the only Act Fool.
It's my car's birthday, so we blowing them candles.
The music video for it, by the way, can be seen as part of canon, since its whole cross-country plot does not jam with the movie's narrative. Honestly, I think that Ludacris is probably the best find the franchise had early on when it comes to both music and silly, goofy acting. When it comes to the cars in this one, I mean, can anyone compete with the capital L legend? Suki's car wins, and that is non-negotiable. And I definitely did not get the idea to dye my hair pink because of that car. And I definitely did not spend an obscene amount of money on a Hot Wheels model based on it.
The new evidence was baffling. The bisexuality of it all was undeniable. It makes sense now that I was chosen to solve this. Brian could not be Carrie, but could he be Samantha? No, that didn't make any sense and only complicated the matters further. Could Brian and Roman both be Samantha? And who would be Carrie if that was the case? Just like last night on Grindr, I will get to the bottom of this.
Anyway, time for the heavyweight champ and arguably the most iconic installment of the franchise, the 2006 Tokyo Drift. You know what it is. Pop Culture Corner. 2006 was definitely further shaping the sequel, triquel, quadriquel, prequel, whatever the fuck landscape. because apparently creativity ceased to exist. Here are some of the many 2006 sequels, just in case. Saw 3, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, Superman Returns, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, Jackass Number 2, Garfield's A Tale of Two Kitties, Scary Movie 4, Ice Age 2, The Meltdown, Final Destination 3. Even though John Singleton said he'd direct the next movie if given the opportunity to, the studio ended up going with Justin Lin, fresh off the indie drama Better Luck Tomorrow, who initially didn't want to take on the project.
They kind of gave me the whole pitch, and I remember thinking, I'm not really interested, and they asked why, and I said, well, the project you have, it felt a little, it felt like it was Karate Kid 2.
With Universal's permission to rework the script and concept, Lin ended up directing Tokyo Drift, an undisputed classic, and most importantly, the film that gave us Tokyo Drift by Teriyaki Boys. So, start your engines, and may the high schooler with the most receding hairline win. We get introduced to the guy who's been held back like 15 years by the looks of it. Sean Boswell, the main character for this installment. In the words of my best friend, they just keep hiring these white dudes with too much audacity. Sean may look like he's pushing 30, but he's actually pushing the pedal to the metal in the first race of the movie. A race, might I add, that he got into because he was flirting with this rich guy's girlfriend. Save this for later.
Winner gets me.
What is this? The goddamn challengers? The race is important to the plot, but somehow also feels very forced. Like they were trying to essentially replicate the rhythm of the first two movies. And it's just way too long, and both the cars and the people inside them are way too unrealistically durable. We also get this absolute gem of a shot with shit flying right into the camera. Cinema is so bad, guys. Let's get one thing straight. This movie was the one where they finally realized that racing and chase sequences worked better with music, and this particular scene gets a Kid Rock song, of all fucking things. Overall, 28 out of 40. The two boating high schoolers attempting to commit vehicular manslaughter against each other results in Sean getting arrested and confronted by his mom with an ultimatum. He either goes to jail or... Tokyo? Damn, what is this plot? His mom also says it's their third town in 2 years. Were they like fucking banished from the previous ones? And why would you keep letting this menace behind the wheel then? So Mr. Baldington High hops on a flight and goes to live with his army dad, who strictly advises him against racing. But then the son also never gets to see the consequence of his actions, so that's an empty threat through and through. Sean goes to school where we meet two other key characters, Neela, the love interest, and Twinkie, played by Bow Wow, who's always hustling like that dude was born with a grind set. The Instagram motivation account bros wanna be him so bad. He also owns the cuntiest car so far. It's all Hulk themed with a huge stereo system in the back. Twinkie, who everyone addresses as Twink, which I'm not gonna comment on.
Japanese food is like the army. Don't ask, don't tell.
And on the third day, God created the Remington bolt-action rifle so that man could fight the dinosaurs and the homosexuals.
Take Sean to this car park where Tokyo Drift blesses our ears for the first time. There, we also meet Takashi, aka the first vaguely Yakuza adjacent character, aka DK.
You know who I am, boy? Yeah. You like the Justin Timberlake of Japan, right?
Sean then proceeds to flirt with Neela, DK's high schooler girlfriend. Once again, I'm not commenting on that. And also proceeds to not listen to Twinkie, the voice of reason, telling him to shut the fuck up and walk away. Honestly, this is just kind of like a movie about how if you have audacity, you can do anything. That whole interaction gets our dude a challenge to a race from DK himself.
You know what DK stands for? Donkey Kong. Drift King.
And so, the humiliation ritual begins. Love the cars, love the music, but the cinema of it all, the zoom, the mug, the two-finger wave. We have never been more back, and Justin Lin should be kissed on the forehead at least 7 times a day for giving us this. 36 out of 40 and a personal S-tier placement from yours truly. Sean, not surprisingly, loses the fuck out of the race and wrecks the car completely in the process, which leads us to Han, aka Takashi's partner in crime, aka the mechanic, aka the second vaguely Yakuza-adjacent character, who makes the 30-year-old miner run his mafia errands for him as a way to pay back for the car. Also, he's always snacking.
The reason Han snacks in the Fast and Furious movies is the origin of Han actually came from Better Luck Tomorrow. And Han in Better Luck Tomorrow was a chain smoker. I got the script for Tokyo Drift. Han did smoke, knowing that a lot of young folks watch, the Fast and Furious franchise. I just felt like it was not the right thing to do.
And as a result of doing research when writing the script, I ended up on people trying to look like Han and just kinda standing near cars and snacking side of TikTok. Pick me up, I'm scared. Back to the movie though. Sean, the audacity-filled guy that he is, demands that Han also teaches him how to drift. This sequence also gets us the first mention of family.
You're an army brat who moved around a lot. Mom and Daddy was never home, and now you found your family with these drift nuts.
Here's where the main question arises. Why do these supposedly grown-up Yakuza members need a high schooler who's bad at driving? What, am I supposed to answer that? Because the director and screenwriters do not. As Mr. Almost Bold learns how to drift, we get the next racing scene, which starts off with the most 2000s, in the best way possible, transition. The music is kinda meh, the scene only serves to remind us that Sean is the MC, and we are in fact watching a car go fast movie. So the overall score only comes out to 24 out of 40. We get a very uninspired date scene between the high schoolers. The only remarkable part being the reveal that Neela and Takashi actually grew up together after her mom died. So... And then the MC gets beaten up by Takashi, which, like all this dude does, is flirt with girls whose boyfriends want his as dad and actually actively try to make that dream a reality. And he has no plans of stopping. Once again, the audacity of it all. Takashi's uncle shows up and goes, "Did you know Han was stealing from us?" And then Takashi shows up at Han's garage. Han and company flee, trying to save their asses, but ultimately just giving us yet another solid chase scene. The main critiques I have is that we get no music changes throughout the whole 7-minute scene, and that it seems like people in Tokyo do not know what underglow is, which does take away from the visuals. This is the "oh my god, white boy can drift" scene. But jokes aside, the face-to-face driving and shooting directly into the windshield, the cars crumbling like paper, the Shibuya crossing, I absolutely love this one. But it's not the best, so 33 out of 40, but no S tier placement. Han also explodes and dies. Maybe at the end of it all, he should have just stuck to cigarettes. Neela and Mr. 13 going on 30 flee on the subway, but then Takashi shows up with a gun because he's an actual Yakuza member beefing with a high schooler. This plot is a fever dream, but I'd appreciate a little more absurdity and camp because it doesn't reach that exact sweet spot of a movie that's so bad it's kind of good. And then Sean's dad shows up with a gun, which led me to ask why he has a gun in the first place, which led my American best friend to explain that pretty much everyone in the army gets one, which in turn led me to go, "You really just give a gun to anyone, huh?" Which led her to reply, "Yeah, kinda." And while we're having this European to American communication moment, O.D. McSchoolings was heading to Takashi's uncle, the high-ranking Yakuza, to try and suggest they squash the beef via a race. A drift race, nonetheless. And the high-ranking Yakuza agrees to that, because of course he does, which leads us to the last race of the movie, where people watch everything live on flip phones, which I'm convinced were only introduced into the script in order for this great transition to exist. The music is kinda it was given general orchestral shit you'd find by googling inspirational epic music royalty-free, but the plot stakes are high even though this whole thing is so deeply unserious. 33 out of 40. Also, Takashi's car flips over like 40 gazillion times, which he somehow survives. After our 40-year-old virgin drifts his way into being forgiven by the Yakuza, everyone's made up and chilling in the same park we've seen before, but then a certain someone even bolder shows up and challenges Sean to a race.
This dude over here wanna race the new DK. Said he knew Han. Said Han was family.
The Bold and the Beautiful era is back, and I'm going to be honest, this finale pissed me off so bad. Why on earth are the creators pretending Dominic Toretto calling his friends capital F family is a thing?
Is that? Yes, my cousin Vinny, and you wouldn't know that if you were minding your own business. So now, close your eyes and follow the sound of my voice.
We know damn well this whole found family thing was only dropped once in the first 2 movies and not by car enthusiast Mr. Proper over here. So why is Justin Lin trying to essentially trick us into thinking the family shit has been here all along? I was genuinely sitting there burning a hole through the couch with the fire that was coming out of my ass all over a Fast and fucking Furious movie. On Christmas Eve, might I add, even though I did that to myself. So what about this movie? I feel like it has a lot of the same faults as the previous one, yet Lin's directing is definitely a better fit for this type of ridiculousness. And not to spoil anything, but we are really going to see him up the ante and settle into a very specific niche over the next few movies. Yes, the plot is borderline nonsensical. Twinkie as a character is kind of useless and is just there because they wanted another rapper added to their roster. The forced Bama Boy accent is truly something, and the way the races are edited is painful and confusing, but Tokyo Drift's visual language and style is one you cannot get out of your head. It's a good movie to watch and laugh at with your friends, and expecting something more out of it would be too much, if you catch my drift. See what I did there? As Nathan Lee summarizes, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift is rated PG-13. Parents strongly cautioned. Cars crash, people cuss, and the global warming apocalypse inches significantly closer. Over and out. One thing is for certain, we can see a stark trend towards the familyfication of the franchise, as this movie gets not 1, but 2 whole mentions of the word, both of which qualify, which then brings our average to 1 capital F family per movie, something that the creators try to retrospectively deny and convince you was always there. But does Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift pass the women in talking Bechdel test? I got the answer right here in this envelope, and drumroll please. Of course it fucking doesn't. Neela, I'm pretty sure, is literally the only named female character, so like, what did you expect? But let's move on to something more exciting than sexism in film before I start questioning whether you have to intentionally write your movies for them not to pass the test. Listen, Justin Lin is probably my favorite Fast and Furious director, but I have a huge bone to pick with him, and it's the fact that his decision to cut down on the underglow was kind of the beginning of the end of the era of fun cars within the franchise. And like, I get it, he wanted to go against the stereotypical portrayal of Tokyo, but god fucking damn, the lack of underglow really does take away from the swag, and it makes the world depressing, you know, and in the universe of beige millennial homes and white walls, all you want is just a little bit of neon. Is that too much to ask for? I don't fucking get it. We have fascism and we don't even get, you know, a pretty looking car. I'd say the only truly exciting car in this movie is Twinkie's Hulk Extravaganza, since none of the other ones really even comes close to it. When it comes to the soundtrack, however, it's just packed full of bangers. It's bangers and bangers and bangers. And we all know that you cannot deny that the titular track by Teriyaki Boys is the star of the show. But it definitely has some pretty strong competition. This is the first movie that features Bandoleros, the track that many years later was immortalized in a gazillion TikTok memes about Dominic Toretto. We also get 6 Days and Speed, and even though it's all over the place, I'd argue that this confusing feel reflects the very multi-coaty Bama Boy Tokyo Drift of the movie. 10 out of 10. My favorite soundtrack of the entire franchise. But, you know, don't get too comfortable just yet.
The further my investigation went, the more complicated it all got, and the more mysteries arose. Were Lucas Black's insane right-wing anti-vax political takes the reason his hairline was like that? Maybe if he hadn't tried to incite a war on pronouns, he/his hair would not be trying to run away from he/him. But I could not get distracted, so he/his crazy tweet rambles would have to wait.
We are now done with the original trilogy and are nearing enemy territory. aka the world of boring cars. 2009 was the beginning of the end, and while I should have been taking advantage of the freshly imploded housing market, I was doing fucking niche, being 8 years old or something. Embarrassing, frankly, I know. It was also the year of more terribly iconic sequels, and sometimes even prequels, when the sequel possibilities ran out. Twilight New Moon, Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Squeakquel, Saw 6, Halloween 2, Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, and Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian. 2009 also gave us Glee and Party in the USA, so like, is the inability to buy a house that bad? Recap, Shasha? Take it away. Thank you, Pop Culture Shasha. But you know who's not getting a thank you? Justin Lin. Justin Lin, we were all rooting for you. How fucking dare you, Justin Lin? I was expecting to be fat on Christmas Day, and instead all I got was car fucking psychic Vin Diesel. Nobody has the right to judge me for drinking a fake Corona. I recorded this yesterday, but then the audio file corrupted, and I'm not putting myself through drinking Corona again. So, also, yeah, Vin Diesel is back. This one, unsurprisingly, opens with a chase scene, one that lasts almost 7 whole minutes, has too much plot and directorial ambition, and serves one purpose and one purpose only: to give us a moment where out-of-drag Katya Zamolodchikova somehow calculates the exact second the car should go under a burning fuel tanker in order to fit perfectly under it, leaving unscathed. Oh, and Han is there, alive and well, so we know it's a prequel to Tokyo Drift. The cars are boring, the scene is so loosely written that it may as well just not exist. Justin Lin decided to go full big boy blockbuster with the cinematography. 18 out of 10. And a disgrace to the family. 2 highlights though, the iguana guy and the cut-off scream. That failed hijacking leads to Dominic saying their little criminal crew is over and they should all go their separate ways, meaning that he's gonna abandon his girlfriend Letty and move to Panama, where, as we all know, people live with a yellow filter over their eyes. We then cut to, shit, it's Brian, who now has slightly darker blonde hair. I guess they ran out of bleach. But still the same freaky blue eyes, and 2009 color grading is definitely not doing him any favors. This is our first on-foot chase scene of the franchise, so I didn't know how to rate the vehicles due to, you know, there not being any, but I ended up giving the scene 2 points because seeing Paul Walker chase someone in a suit was very confusing and gave me and my buddy in crime that is subjecting ourselves to this franchise something to talk about. Once again, this chase is not crucial to the plot, but serves to establish some basics, namely that Mr. Blue-Eyed Freak is trying to catch a drug lord by the name of Arturo Braga, and everything else is boring, yawning, sloppy, lazy. A few months later, Mr. Car Pitbull gets a call from Mia, who informs him that Letty had died in a car crash. He goes back to LA to dramatically watch the funeral from afar, and also drives his very recognizable car that the feds know about while he's visiting the US. After that, Baldy visits Mia and asks her to bring him to the crash site, where he proceeds to do something I can only describe as being car psychic.
What the fuck is this kid doing?
Dom is full-on experiencing visions. He's kind of like a medium, but his spirits are cars. That's something the movie introduces. While in the previous movies, Dominic Toretto was just a very good driver who also knows a lot about cars, he low-key becomes a superhero in this one. Using his supercar vision powers, Mr. Bowling Ball deduces that Letty was, in fact, shot. He smells something called nitromethane and heads to this one mechanic that sells it in order to track down his girl's killer, because of course he knows the one guy who sells it. And then we get the official reunion of The Bold and the Beautiful, when Dom is literally dangling a man over the street with one hand and one hand only. Remember, he's a superhero now. And Brian bursts in because, in a twist that is shocking to no one, they are after the same man. Now here's where the problem with this movie arises. Whereas Tokyo Drift felt quite fresh due to a campy, silly plot that took itself only a little too seriously. This movie is trying to pretend its plot matters way more than it does. Brian decides that Mia did not get enough of his bullshit the first movie, so he tells her to stay away from Dom.
What I did to you was wrong. I'm sorry. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do.
I'm sorry too, Brian. I'm so sorry that you had to come into my home and pretend to love me. I'm so sorry that you ripped my family apart.
So, our two main characters end up at the same tryout race, which features two great things that the movie quickly forgets. A, the weird GPS thingies that the drug lord supposedly gives to all his drivers, and B, a character named Dwight who has a foot fetish, only talks about himself in the third person and calls everyone a nutsack.
Yo, nutsack! Dwight likes feet. Take off your shoes.
Dwight, he will always be famous. The race itself is, as all others, too wannabe plot-heavy, and Justin Lin seems to have lost his ability to work with music, but the GPS is a nice touch. And Paul Walker yelling at it, it was really old man yells at cloud of him.
Shut up!
23 out of 40. Let's not question the fact that in order to qualify for the team, the drivers have to race through the city at insane speed, something supposedly introduced by the drug lord himself, who knows the feds are on his ass. This is all so deeply unserious. Gal Gadot, whose character's name I do not remember, as it is not important to this movie, tries to hit on Toretto, who brushes her off with the second greatest line of the movie.
Are you one of those boys who prefers cars to women?
I'm one of those boys that appreciates a fine body regardless of the make.
It's time for our dudes to go run a shipment. And by that I mean another cargo fast scene with pretty solid cars, unimpressive music, unnecessary plot, and cinema that isn't exactly cinema-ing. 12 out of 40. At the handover site, Dominic says,
That only pussies run nitro meth.
And explodes the shit out of everything because, in case you forgot, he was car psychic. He realizes the guy who killed Letty is right there. The dynamic duo drives away with $60 million worth of heroin in the car, and after not really hiding it, go to have a family dinner.
Thank you, Lord, for blessing this table.
Of food, and family, and friendship.
We also found out that Letty was an FBI informant.
What is the tea? The girls are fighting!
And then Blondie explains that she agreed to the deal only if they could wipe Toretto's record. So Brian is partially responsible for Letty's death, something Toretto lets go of surprisingly easily, because grieving the love of his life can wait, but the second Corona product placement of the movie cannot. Also, our blue-eyed freak gets together with Mia in an unconvincing scene that is, I guess, supposed to beat the asexual allegations. Then there are some more attempts at plot that involve the feds promising to let Mr. Baldy walk if the two can catch Braga, a decoy in a terribly tailored suit, and a real drug lord in an even more terribly tailored suit, and a little church break because Catholic guilt and heroin apparently go together like good wine and old cheese. And most importantly, yet another chase scene. This one is kind of giving. It did Mad Max Fury Road before Mad Max was Fury Roading. It's actually important to the plot, and we get to witness yet another superhero moment from Dominic when he straight up leaps out of a moving car into another moving car in a maneuver that is about as physically possible as me not wearing a bald cap for this video. And if you want to say, Shasha, but you aren't wearing a bald cap right now. Have you ever heard of Waiting? But the music is lacking, so overall 28 out of 40. Also, this chase scene gives us this moment.
Pussy.
Surprising to literally no one, the two catch Braga and bring him in. The fads, being the fucking fads, do not hold up their end of the deal.
And I quickly learned that lesson in the find out session of the around.
But worry not. The movie ends with the Dominic Toretto apologist hijacking the bus that's supposed to take him to prison. But let's talk about the really important parts. The family. The cars and the music, of course. As for capital F family, there are only 2 mentions of it in the movie. And let me tell you, this movie is the last one before, you know, the family wave rolls in, before the word starts constantly being thrown in. And as for the Bagno test, guess. I've told you we were nearing enemy territory. Because we were. See, as my roommate pointed out, Around this movie is when the cars start their transition from the expensive because of cool modifications to the just expensive category. And the street racing aspect really takes like a huge step back. It's not as evident in 4, but starting from Fast 5 onwards, this dramatic decrease in cuntiness just cannot be ignored. Still, a choice needs to be made. 2 beautiful cars stand before me, but only one can be this video's next top chunk of metal. The red and black car, Shantae You Stay. This movie is largely vindicated by its soundtrack, like the pitbull of it all. It's booming, it's fun, it might as well be a party pregame playlist. And even though Virtual Diva is a strong contender, because we all know this diva, Blanco is the undisputed champion of bald man driving cars movie soundtracks.
Vin Diesel was back, but that did not help my investigation. Just who was the carrier of the franchise? And what did it all mean? Were tire screeching noises coded subliminal messages? Did the soundtrack have the answers? Was Pitbull behind all of this?
But did you know that there was a secret gem of a short movie holding this entire universe together? Bet you didn't? Los Bandoleros, named after the iconic track, is a 20-minute short directed by Vin Diesel that makes an attempt at making sense of whatever happened to Dom between the end of the first movie and his cameo in the 2006 Tokyo Drift. Like, where does he know Han from? Los Bandoleros, which can definitely not be found on Dailymotion, honestly has more soul than probably the entire franchise. It establishes the characters and their relationships, and Vin Diesel does a surprisingly good job at directing, something he, at that point of his career, had kind of given up on.
I think it's a long overdue homage being paid to la comunidad latina.
Mi gente latino.
Amongst the representation of a whole underground world. There's just a whole slew of people who live under other rules. They have their own moral code. And I think that Los Bandoleros just kind of sums that all up.
The short was also filmed and produced with the help of the students from Vin Diesel's nonprofit called One Race Global Film Foundation, which helps film students and enthusiasts from typically underrepresented communities get experience in the movie industry.
So they came to the course, and just last year they were working on a Universal picture called Fast and Furious, probably the biggest picture of the year, and these students had the experience of working on that film.
And I think that's really sweet. Los Bandoleros starts off quite plot heavy and pretends like Leo and Santos were always named characters, which they were not. There's a cookout, there's some illegal activity, but no racing or chase scenes, so that's why we're kind of skimming over the short. And even though the second half of the movie is dedicated to Diesel and Rodriguez canoodling in the car and on the beach, we do get an explanation of how Han was supposedly capital F family. See? Han and Dom apparently met in Mexico and have run a couple of jobs together all over the world since then. And it's kind of the only thing holding the timeline together, if you think about it. Also, Vin Diesel just loves a good zoom. And maybe he should have stuck to directing and, leading a nonprofit, because that's apparently what he's good at. Anyways, back to the soulless franchise with the car sidekicks. 2011 was not a year rich in pop culture. I mean, I turned 10 and Beyonce turned out to be pregnant, so the divas were busy, Planking was big, I guess. Cars 2, Alvin and the Chipmunks Chipwrecked, and Kung Fu Panda 2 came out, but even the sequel world was not that eventful. I mean, The Human Centipede Part 2 was released, but we know that there's something way scarier to remember 2011 by. It's Fast 5. This just in. I am officially back as the founding member and manager of operations at the Justin Lin fan club. I'm gonna be honest, I did not expect much from him after the last one, But Fast 5 truly was a blast and everything you could ever want from a vroom vroom bang bang type of movie.
We're so excited to welcome one of Hollywood's brightest creative talents, the screenwriter behind this summer's blockbuster, the new Fast and the Furious movie, Fast 5. Chris Morgan, thanks for joining us.
5 opens with a short "here's what you missed on Glee" type of situation that edges you by showing the beginning of the prison bus chase and then cuts off right at the good part. I'm not even gonna rate this one. Let's just put it into the corner of shame. Imagine making a scene so bad I introduced the corner of shame. We cut to Rio de Janeiro, which is evident from the Jesus statue and the third world country filter that was a must-have in the 2010s, I guess.
These supposedly like Brazilian actors have like this shitty accent to them. It's like they have something in their mouths or something. It feels like very unnatural.
And Mia is pregnant, but nobody knows yet. Shelf that for later. Brian, Vince, and Dom join some no-names to try and steal some cars from an actively moving train? ? To quote Roger Ebert, "I don't think you can steal cars from a speeding train by driving a truck beside the tracks, cutting the side out of a freight car with an acetylene torch, flipping the cars onto the truck bed, tilting the bed, letting them roll to the ground, and then driving them away. I think there are more practical ways to steal cars." However, the ridiculousness of it all is where Fast 5 thrives. We see vehicular manslaughter and witness the MCs break the laws of physics more than we hear dialogue. But back to the literal scene of the crime. There's the crew from the first movie, the no-names, and a couple DEA agents who get shot in the process. The car and train action is just great. The shot with a piece of metal being torched out of the train is pure cinema. The way Trixie and Katya always jump out of a doomed car at the last exact right moment, love. Even though I feel like the music was lacking, everything else was peak tough guy movie. That is to say, it was pure dumb entertainment, and Justin Lin really found his footing with action scenes in this movie, with cuts getting more spaced out and the plot of the chase itself being easier to follow. A strong 35 out of 40. The fifth installment of the franchise is also the movie where Baldy gets even more superpowers, and also just straight up starts killing people left and right.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
In line with his big bald brother, Mr. Miley Cyrus there also becomes a superhero. I guess that's just part of being in the family. And here comes the first mention of family, by the way.
You never trust me. Look where it's gotten us. Look at our family now.
Turns out, if you see people from the Drug Enforcement Administration and realize the cars you're stealing are seized by them, the rides in question might not be your ideal target. Short story short, because the movie only gives us about 3 lines of dialogue at a time, the family stole some sort of an important computer chip that belonged to the biggest, baddest drug lord by the name of Reyes, not to be confused with the biggest, baddest drug lords they've robbed and killed before. The US government sends Luke Hobbs, a DSS agent played by The Rock, who is so sweaty at all times, and also has a beard so that in the fighting scenes you don't confuse him with the other big bald dude.
I am Drew, I am Danny, and we are not the same person.
But a beard was not enough, so they also gave him a local assistant / translator by the name of Elena Neves, who's got a whole sob story about a dead husband, and also is our good cop of the movie.
Patrol officer, you heard me. But why? We have many more experienced people. I like her smile.
What is up with drug lords and cops in the franchise? With that, we get the second on-foot chase of the franchise. The effects are terrible. Gravity and the laws of physics do not exist. The ridiculousness is reaching chef's kiss levels, especially the "what if we kissed during a shootout in the slums of Rio" moment that Trixie and Elena share. 29 out of 40. Mr. Proper also loses his cross necklace that Elena picks up, which serves to aggressively reintroduce Dom's Catholic era. Like, he was not this Catholic in the previous movies, but I digress. The Rock also kills people left and right.
What murder?
It's after the chase that Mia decides to tell the family that she's pregnant.
What happens next time? We have no choice but to split up.
Pregnant.
And so we get 2 whole family moments in the same scene.
I already lost my family once. I'm not going through that again.
Family just got bigger.
Hey, Dom, what do you remember about your father?
We got daddy issues, daddy issues.
Dom and company realize the chip has a lot of juicy financial info about the drug empire stored on it, and they decide to pull a second heist of the movie. So we get an Ocean's 11 style introduction of everyone invited to the function.
Dude, we're getting the band back together.
Including Han, Gal Gadot, I still don't know her character's name, and I refuse to learn it, frankly. Rome, Taj, and the two dudes we briefly saw in that fuel tanker hijacking of the fourth movie and who always talk shit in Spanish, Leo and Santos.
Feo es feo en español o en inglés.
Too fail.
No.
I'm not fail, too fail.
Too feo.
And we also get the best joke of the movie.
I got love for y'all, but personal ain't good business. So what we're talking about is $100 million.
You say what? Honey. See, sometimes I be overthinking, man.
Yes, the bar is in hell. But you know what? After the fourth one, this one made me chuckle a little bit. And so the devious heist activity commences. Baldy sets a bunch of money on fire like he's the Joker. They obtain the drug lord's handprint by sending Gal Gadot to awkwardly and totally not suspiciously flirt with him for all of 20 seconds. Taj obtains a whole money vault to practice on. By the way, anything that does not hold up in the face of scrutiny is explained away with a simple, I had a life before this.
A Class 3 electronic lock with a surefire Griffin retumbler and a biometric palm scanner.
Do I want to know how you know all that?
I had a life before you knew me, O'Connor.
Where in the hell did y'all get one of these?
Well, we had a life before you met us.
We also learned that Han finds war criminals hot.
So how long were you in the army? The gun you pulled the other day was a Jericho 941. I'm wrecking the slide. That was straight up Mossad.
The crew steals a bunch of unrealistically modern and cool-looking police cars, which they then proceed to race in right by the police precinct in the middle of the night, because apparently being caught is not really a concern that they have, like, ever. The cinema is cinema-ing, but that's about the only strong suit of the scene. Like, plot-wise, it's just a reason to show us a race. So all in all, 25 out of 40.
Salute me, familia.
Tell me about the beer that they're drinking.
Brahma, it's a solid choice for beer. I used to drink that like whenever I go to a bar, like a cheap one, you know. Like I've never had craft beer there. I just order a Brahma and then no one ever complains about it.
There's also this whole subplot about Vince half-heartedly betraying the crew and then feeling bad about it and then helping them out and dying shortly after. So he's technically there, but his influence on the plot is very questionable. His whole character arc only serves to keep up the family stock.
I know that you're all set for this job tomorrow, but if you need an extra man,
you're in. There's always room for family.
Also, Elena and Hobbs, The Rock, are now taking part in the heist too, because Mr. Evil Drug Lord kills their entire team, which makes sense as long as you don't question it. We get the longest and the most action-packed chase of the movie, where our two-car superheroes literally rip out the vault from the police station and just swing it around the city.
Vault.
Down, swing it around.
Killing countless innocent people and causing billions in public property damages, but at least the way it's shot is very pleasant to look at. The plot is so deeply unserious that it should be spelled with a capital U, and I do count the vault as one of the cars, so pretty much 10s across the board. 36 out of 40, and a personal S tier placement for me. Then, when pretty much everyone is dead and The Rock says our guys have 24 hours to escape before he arrests them, because a pig is always a pig, we get the final twist. Turns out there was a heist within a heist. Our demolition derby lovers switched the vault with the money and the one Taj brought in to practice on, so they get to keep everything they stole. Taj and Rome spend their share on cars and girls. Han and Mrs. War Criminal head to Germany, as evident by the very convincing shot that was definitely filmed on location. The shit talkers lose all their money in a casino, and the family is chilling somewhere Maldives adjacent. Well, family, with an addition of the Brazilian cop lady Elena, who Dom got together with because A, cross necklace, B, he totally has a weak spot for cops, and C, they both have dad love interests. As a final gag, we get a post-credit scene with one of the main resurrections of the franchise. Turns out, Letty's alive, because killing main characters for real is not a thing the movies ever do.
What happened to the pull-out method, man?
But why expect good writing from the Car Go Fast franchise when you can instead enjoy unnecessary stats? So, I need to premise this by admitting something. I've been lying to you. I'm not only counting the numbers of capital F family mentions, but also the mentions of doing one last job. And this movie is where every job becomes the last.
We're gonna do one last job.
So, as the guys from Nickelback would say,
Look at this graph.
As for the family, there's 5 whole mentions, which isn't a lot, but it's 150% increase since the previous highest metric. So this is the time we all should have been investing, really putting our money into family stock. And I'll tell you more. This is the first movie in the franchise to pass the Bagdell test. Yes, Fast 5 barely passed. But it did, and it only took us 5 movies to arrive at one conversation between Giselle, even though I had to Google her name, and Mia that consisted of 2 lines. Real woke win, I guess. This movie is also where the change in cars starts getting noticeable. The fact that I had to scroll through the entirety of 5 and then Google a list of cars that make an appearance tells you all you need to know. And this is why I saved the 1970 Dodge Charger, also known as the dad car, for later. Is it even in my top 5 overall? No, but it will have to do. The Fast 5 soundtrack does not hit as much as the other ones, but when it does, it hits fucking hard. Furiously Dangerous has both a fun tune and beat, and lyrics that make you do a double take. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
My shit fly like a entrepreneur.
And once again, what do you mean?
I shit on rappers, every verse just got the bubble guts.
Think you the shit, bitch? You're not even the fuck.
And even though the only Don Omar is, iconic, I would still vote for this one because in the long run, this is the one that stuck with me. It's just great. It's a great song.
I felt I was close to a breakthrough. There was something in the air, though. Maybe it was the glue I used to put on this mustache. What was The Rock doing there? Maybe the next movie would answer my questions.
And with that, let's take a leap of faith right into a pool full of shit. 2013, seemingly the last year before it all started going downhill. The year of 2 guys with man buns and a crazy dream. The year of Get Lucky by Daft Punk. The year of Pure Heroin by Lorde. The year of bangers. The year of Beyonce. The year of Catching Fire. Though arguably kind of every year is the year of Beyonce, but eh. But it wasn't a good year for sequels, especially those that were fast and, as some may even say, furious. This is our last Justin Lin movie for a while, and as we know, anything new introduced to the franchise has made it more and more unbearable, so strap in. Bada bing, bada boom! First race of the movie. It's the Bald and the Brian rushing through non-extradition Canary Islands to the hospital where Mia is given birth. I wholeheartedly believe this scene is just there because all the directors are obligated to start a Fast and Furious movie with a chase by the wider cinematic canon. 18 out of 40, and moving on. And then, as if it's the most normal thing in the world, we get a montage of all the previous movies that almost suggest this one's gonna be the last. But fear not, we've got at least 4 more after 6. It also looks like a fan edit that somebody just decided to plug before the movie starts, which kind of tells you how unserious everything that follows is going to be. Cut to Russia, Moscow, where The Rock, who finally discovered mattifying powder, and his Elena replacement are investigating an incident that involved a bunch of fast cars and a heist. So naturally, the stone goes,
"There's only one crew in the world who could get this done."
And then we see him enter an interrogation room with a bald dude sitting there waiting for him. But that's not dumb. The fucking around and finding out franchise just pulled a bold fake out on us. And then police brutality ensues, but that's nothing new.
Obviously, we completely encourage people to go out and punch their local cops.
Turns out the crew in question is not Dom's, but Shaw's, whoever the fuck that may be.
Clap if you care.
They're building some sort of a supercomputer evil army thing and need components for it, which is conveniently told us through dialogue, because movies being a visual art form is not a thing anymore, I guess. Rock pays a visit to the ever corona plugging Dom and convinces him to get the band back together by whipping out a picture of the very not dead Letty. Brian joins him, of course, because
we're family.
Cut to a where are they now type montage for all of the other characters, as if we didn't get that at the end of the last movie. And then everyone gets together and we get this jam of a scene.
Hey man, which one of these things is $1? It's on the house.
Just in, people who invested into family stock are cheering.
Now I know you guys are a family, so I'm offering you a chance right now to make that family whole again.
You want to make this family whole again?
Shaw pretends to lead the crew to his hideout so that he can engage in otherwise heisty activities, which gives us the first real chase of the movie. I absolutely love Shaw's whole brutalism adjacent, almost like Mad Max core aesthetic that makes all his cars look like they could only exist in a comic book, but the music remains uninspired and the choppy editing is back, so we get a 26 out of 40. In order to make up for this flop of a chase, Justin Lin introduces the gag of the century, which is that Letty is working for Shaw, and she, in true traitor fashion, shoots Bodhi with no hesitation.
Maybe the Letty we once knew is gone, Dom. Even though she's alive, maybe she's gone.
You don't turn your back on family.
Meanwhile, Shaw's crew finds a picture of Dom and Letty together, which leads us to the sloppy explanation of how and why Letty made it out. Turns out she doesn't remember anything. How convenient.
I'm sitting there looking at these images. It's like we're hunting our evil twins.
Evil twin, evil twin.
Hey, Brian, when did you do this photo shoot? I'm just playing, man. You know you're the prettiest blonde around here.
The Rock informs the crew that Shaw stole a list of all the components he needs for his evil supercomputer evil army thing, but that same list is only valid for 96 hours, so they only got 4 days to strike. It all makes sense as long as you don't question why Shaw would steal this short-lived list if he cannot get all the components within the aforementioned 96 hours, and also why he stopped using the intel he used to steal all the previous parts. Remember when this franchise was about cool cars going fast and dudes being furious? Logically, with less than 4 days left, Dom decides to go and explore the racing scene of London, where he challenges Letty to a race that starts off with Rita Ora doing the countdown. Of all people, we get to see Bodhi's car do the uppies thing again, which my best friend informed me are called hydraulics. But once again, you cannot pay me enough to care. Do I look like a car person to you? The cinema of it all is cinema-ing, the EDM type track is EDMing, and the whole thing is relatively plot relevant because it leads to Trixie and Letty showing each other their scars and plants a seed of, oh shit, I used to date this dude in Letty's head. 31 out of 40 overall, even though this is blatant nostalgia bait for original Fufu trilogy lovers. And then Shaw shows up and drops some more families.
You're loyal to a fault. Your code is about family. Take your crew and walk away. That's the only way you're gonna keep your family safe.
Your brother never told you never threaten a man's family?
No one needs to know about this.
While all of that is happening, one of Shaw's guys tells the crew he's connected to Braga, the FF4 drug lord. So once again, with less than 4 days to spare, Mr. Blue Eyes Mormon Face goes back to the US in order to try and get some info out of Braga in prison. All of that as if he's not an internationally wanted terrorist. All we get out of this subplot is that the guy that Dominic killed for revenge in FF4
Pussy.
actually took pity on Letty and did not kill her, and she got amnesia, and Shaw took her in. We never see Dominic confronting the fact that he's just casually killing people, innocent people, by the way, because, you know, he's the good guy. Dominic and the family initially think that Shaw is going to attack a military base in Spain, but then, in an uninspired twist, it is revealed that their real target is the convoy, which prompts the next chase. Now, this scene is pure cinema. The plot is just barely held together by the tank that Shaw drives.
Somebody better do something! I got a tank on my ass!
Bodhi catches Letty mid-fall, physics cease to exist, we get more cool cars, and even though the music is lacking again, and the total comes out to 32 out of 40, it gets an S-tier placement for me. You know, love a good tank. Then we get a little filler in form of a reveal that some cops work for Shaw and Mia getting taken hostage while Elena escapes with the baby, which then leads to the final chase of the fuck around and find out 6. Now, a tank was obviously not enough, because this one features a full-on cargo plane that is trying to take off of this endless runway while being held down by a few grappling hooks and a lot of audacity. The plot of the scene is important-ish, yet so deeply unserious you have to actively suppress any thinking your brain is trying to do. We get a bunch of fight scenes within the chase scene. Stone and Baldy fight alongside each other, but the cars are nothing new or exciting. And a plane pales in comparison to a tank, so 30 out of 40. Gal Gadot, who solely existed in the movie as the sexy war criminal who Han was very much into, dies in slow motion while shooting a guy.
Should she suffer? All right, clap if you think she should suffer.
Dominic, having gained even more superpowers, walks through the fire of a burning plane while holding a metal case and doesn't get a single burn on him, and asks The Rock to get them all off so they can return to bumfuck nowhere, California from the very first movie, where they can plug Corona in peace. Elena, after a breakup so bad, like imagine your man's dead girlfriend comes back to life type of bad. Goes back to being a cop, but not without making a point about the capital F family.
You know you don't have to go.
No, this is your family. It's who you are. This is my family.
And then, to finish it all off, Roman says grace that only makes sense in a Fast and Furious movie.
Thank you for the little angel, the newest addition to our family. Thank you for bringing Letty home. And most of all, thank you for fast cars.
You thought it was over?
Of course not. There's a post-credit scene that shows Han's death in Tokyo Drift again, with a little nuance of it being planned by yet another Baldy, Jason Statham, who says,
Dominic Toretto, you don't know me. You're about to.
Let's be real for a second. How many bald guys does a franchise need? I have maybe 4 bald jokes, which I've been reusing this entire video, and now I gotta stretch them out to 4 buff bald dudes? Are you fucking serious?
I thought that was our last job, Brian.
No, the fuck it wasn't. This locomotive of a franchise cannot be stopped, even if we were to throw all the roided bald guys on the tracks. This is not the trolley problem. This is a whole trolley disaster. When it comes to capital F family, as you could have guessed from the recap, it grew like some yeast dough you threw into the bin and forgot about. That is to say, it turned into one of those 80s goop creatures and is now taking over the entire franchise. 11 whole mentions in a 130-minute long movie. That's like one family per 10 minutes if you cut out the intro and credits. This is genuinely insane behavior, and it feels like Vin Diesel had a quota for the writers who were desperate to squeeze in all those 11 mentions of family. When it comes to the Bagdo test of it all, this one was particularly frustrating because while we get all these female characters, it seems they are prohibited from talking to each other, like, at all. There was a bunch of non-conversations, and I was almost duped by the exchange between Letty and Elena at the end, but they're talking about Dominic. Because if Diesel is not on the screen, he still whistles his way into every second of the movie. So, no, this is a fail yet again, but like, who's shocked? Me? I'm shocked by how much the album fucking sucks. Why would you let David Guetta near your movies? Choosing a favorite was easy because there's just one fun, silly track. We own it.
You on vacation, we getting paid, so we on vacation.
And also,
you can catch me kissing my girl with both eyes closed.
I mean, I would hope so. What are you doing? Keeping an eye out for Selena? When it comes to cars, I just had to go for Shaw's ramp car, simply because even though I love a tank, it doesn't technically count, and I really respect the almost like rat car, blokey, brutalist aesthetic. Pretty much every other car sucks ass too, except for the rad Dodge Charger Daytona. But the franchise's transition into big, black, expensive car territory is honestly getting harder and harder to do this. It's just plain boring. Like, it sucks ass. It's not fun. It makes me mad.
Was Justin Lin telling the audience something by adding yet another bald man to the franchise? Were car superheroes not enough? Was the family perhaps hiding something? All the Corona product placement made me think there is a lead buried there. But all I got was just beer that fucking sucked ass.
2015. Haven't heard that name in a decade. Zayn left One Direction. Adele was talking on the phone. Inside Out was one of the highest grossing movies of the year. But most importantly, 2015 is where we come full circle. This was not just any other year. It was 2015 when Superfast dropped. Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer of Scary Movie fame decided it was time to make a Fast and Furious parody that somehow bombed more than actual movies. I mean, you really have to try to make your parody less watchable than the thing you're parodying.
It's not the car you drive. It's the driver who's driving the car that's doing the driving.
But, you know, enough about the haters. Let's get back to the blueprint. Friendship with Justin Lin ended. James Wan is now the director. Yes, the man who made the original Saw. And just letting you know, there are even more tough bald men in this movie.
Oh my gosh, she's bald! She's bald and she's torturing people who have hair!
And James Wan wastes no time getting to the newest rendition of the bald and combat trained by showing us Jason Statham visiting his somehow not dead brother. Remember what happened in the last movie? He's visiting his brother in a hospital and promising to get his revenge, because we ran out of chosen family and therefore had to switch to actual blood family, I guess. Then we cut to the OG bald man trying to make Letty's memories come back by taking her to race wars. Yes, they still did not get the memo that the name is questionable at best.
Here comes the money! 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 Here comes the money!
There, a lady races some rando to the sweet tune of techno in pretty solid cars, so 31 out of 40. This scene is there to introduce us to the concept of Letty struggling with PTSD, which conveniently does not come up again, and to show us that Iggy Azalea is there. For whatever reason. Hector, the very same one from the first movie, gets punched in the face and disappears back into the vault of the Fast and Furious lore. Here's the thing. Originally, Hector and Sean from F1 and Tokyo Drift respectively were meant to play a bigger role in the movie, but were ultimately cut due to changes that had to be introduced when Paul Walker died. This is something that's very noticeable throughout the whole movie. Walker's death, before the filming wrapped up, definitely posed a challenge to the already weak material, making the end product all muddy and confusing, and honestly just really, really bad. This is a really bad movie. And not in a fun, bad way, the way others are. Like it's just bad, you know? So after the whole debacle, Letty breaks up with Dom because she needs to find herself, to which Vin Diesel gives a half-raised eyebrow. Cut to The Rock, who's been demoted to a paper-flipping job, and Elena, who, after the love of her boyfriend's life got resurrected, went blonde and got a bang. Honestly, you go, girl. Jason Statham, the other Shaw, announces himself and shows everyone that he's going to be playing a very specific role in this movie. He's the bald boogeyman powered by hate and a Disney villain level amount of grenades. He sneaks into The Rock's office in order to steal Han's file and get started on his revenge grind, and simultaneously engage in some bald on bald crime. The Rock, by way of being close to the family for a few movies now, also got superpowers, which he uses to jump out of a fucking building and only break like 3 bones. Mr. Thousand-Yard Blue-Eyed Stare is struggling to be a white picket fence dad, and Mia's pregnant again.
What happened to the pull-out method, man?
But we gotta get to the next big thing. Trixie gets a call from Japan where the boogeyman announces that his menace routine has commenced, and then does what? Right, blows up the package on Dominic's front step. And I cannot help but be impressed by his hater grind set, if I'm being honest. After getting his house and his mind blown, Baldy goes to visit the other Baldy in the hospital, where we learn that the British boogeyman's name is Deckard Shaw. He was originally an off-the-books Black Ops agent who went rogue and is somehow unkillable, but that's nothing new to the franchise. Naturally, he needs to be taken down before he hurts any more of the family.
Almost killed my family. He also tried to put me in a body bag too.
You two need to find this guy, and you need to stop him before he does any more damage to our family.
Dominic hops on a flight to Tokyo in order to meet up with Sean, who gives him what is left of Han. That is a photo of Gal Gadot and the infamous cross necklace. Which, speaking of, didn't Dom give the necklace to Letty? Just how many fucking cross necklaces does Dominic Toretto own? Everyone heads to Han's funeral. Well, everyone sans Mia and the kid, who gets sent off to the Dominican Republic.
Dom needed a safe delivery to Rio in 2 days. That was a problem. Hosting his family in the Dominican Republic at his vacation.
Which also, every single time the Dominican Republic gets brought up, I just remember how Vin Diesel is apparently friends with the president of the Dominican Republic, or at least was friends with the president of the Dominican Republic at some point. That is a crazy link up, if I'm being honest. That is insane. In true boogeyman fashion, Deckard Shaw shows up and stalks the family. And we get the first taste of what the chase scenes are going to look like in this movie. They are going to be very interesting to look at visually and quite easy to follow, but lack on the musical side, and serve more than anything to establish character dynamics than plot points. Even though we still don't get any cars with underglow, the homoerotic racing is back, and at this point I've come to appreciate old school American muscle cars, so this one gets a modest 25 out of 40. As if destroying cars is not enough, the Baldies move on to shit talking.
You never should have messed with a man's family.
I told your brother the same thing.
And whipping out guns as well. But then a bunch of special agents show up and Shaw makes a run for it.
I'm running.
After Shaw gets away, a whole new dude shows up and introduces himself as
Mr. Nobody.
Girl, what the fuck is you talking about?
and proceeds to usher Baldy to some sort of Mr. Guy headquarters where he A, whips out a bucket of Corona.
Would you like one?
More of a Corona man myself.
And B, explains that they have similar interests in this whole thing. Short story short, a terrorist whose name I cannot remember to save my fucking life, so we're gonna call him Evil Baldy because he's evil and bald, as you might have guessed. That guy kidnapped a hacker named Ramsey who developed some sort of super spyware entitled God's Eye. Basically, if Baldy can steal the hacker back from Evil Baldy, he can use the cool spyware to find and kill Shaw.
You and your family don't go to any more funerals.
The crew pulls up and devises a plan that involves stunts typically reserved for fever dreams you see when you're pumped full of cold medicine. And Letty shows up too, conveniently leaving her PTSD at home.
Can you ride?
Yeah, of course I can. Han was my family too.
The cinema of it all is just ridiculous, but the cars could not be more boring looking and product placement-y, and the music is lacking as expected. Let me just list some of the things that transpire in this sequence. Cars jump out of a cargo plane using parachutes. Normal-sized cars hide behind the big car, which acts as a shield against bullets. CGI Brian outruns gravity. Baldy does donuts in the dust to distract evil Baldy and then drives off a cliff with a passenger in his car, and also stays alive after flipping about 4,070 gazillion times. 23 out of 40 overall, and 1 bonus point because my best friend said it looked like the Pacific Northwest, and she loves the Pacific Northwest. And she also watched 10 of these 11 movies with me, so thanks a lot for that. When they successfully secure the hacker, Rome gets very confused because if hacker, why hot girl or something? So Ramsey gives us a rundown roll call of the gang.
Ex-cop, tech guy, Alpha, Mrs. Alpha, Joker.
Wrong.
Double alpha. Man candy. You know what I'm saying?
Man, sit your candy ass down.
And that confirms that Omegaverse is real within the Fast and Furious universe, and we only had to wait 7 movies for that. Somehow, after being kidnapped and forced to live through the family shenanigans, Ramsey likes the entire gang right away, so she tells him the chip is stashed in Abu Dhabi because she mailed it to a friend that lives there. Once again, everything in these movies makes sense as long as you don't question it. The family heads out to the Middle East.
Everyone's looking for the thrill, but what's real is family. Your family.
If you think about it, the Furious 7 is the Sex and the City 2 of the Fuck Around and Find Out franchise.
We got a lot of Abu Dhabi to do! Abu Dhabi do!
And just like in the case of Sex and the City 2, how about they Abu Dhabi don't? Ramsey's friend reveals that he sold the thing to some type of a prince, so we are back to doing heists. They semi-fail at this one, plus the boogeyman shows up again. So the Bald and the Brian end up jumping between 3 skyscrapers while in a car, because gravity and all that other physics shit only exists for those who don't have a capital F family.
Cars don't fly!
Are you sure about that?
Does this count as a chase scene? I'm not sure, so let's just put it into the corner of shame. With the chip secured, they track the British Baldy to an abandoned factory where he exhibits pure I don't give a fuck behavior. Honestly, this movie just made me a fan of Deckard Shaw. Like, he is the least bothered person in the world, but he's also somehow the biggest hater. He puts his energy into the right things, and that is being Vin Diesel's ops, which I respect. Like, he's not only the boogeyman, he's also the heavyweight champ of being chill and nonchalant.
You ever heard the saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend?
I don't have friends. I got family.
Some more bald-on-bald crime ensues, and being bald apparently gives you superpowers in this universe, because both of them make it out alive after a little grenade explodes in front of their faces, but the crew ends up losing God's eye and leaving Mr. Guy on the side of the road while he waits for medical attention, which is such lazy writing, my fucking god. The gang decides to go back to LA because they know the terrain better and can bring their plan of hacking the hacker to life. Now that the evil Baldy has God's eye, Ramsey is being tracked and they have to play hot potato with her.
Basically, we just gearing up for a big game of hot potato.
And which car is the potato?
Girl, you're the potato.
Now, I've broken down the next scene into 2 separate ones as I feel that the general family versus evil guy chase should be judged separately from the evil Baldy versus OG Baldy, as they follow different stages of the one big final chase. You can disagree with that for sure, but if you've made it this far into the video, you might as well just accept this logic that I came up with based purely on vibes. So, phase 1 of the final chase has 3 main things going on. Statham is fighting Vin Diesel, Brian loses his fucking car and has to do cardio on the stairs and fight that one guy who tried to kill him during the convoy chase, and the rest of the drivers are just trying to buy time by throwing Ramsey between cars, pretending like tech people are also somehow into acrobatics. We get a nice little callback to the first movies with Mr. Blue-Eyed Freak driving his car under the truck and Baldy's racing in a parking garage and playing car chicken again. Rock also literally flexes out of his cast to go and help the family. Brian rolls around on a dolly after losing his car and slides on a door like a sled. There's some orchestra stuff going on in the background. For the Baldy's fighting it out using wrenches, a full-on choir comes in, and the sheer number of moving pieces brings the score up, so it's a 33 out of 40. Once again, the unseriousness of it all earns an S tier placement from me, mostly thanks to the cast thing. Like, that was very hee-hee, very ha-ha. That felt a little self-aware. The crew succeeds at pulling the hacking the hacker thing, and Dominic supposedly wins the fight with his evil British twin by using the sheer power of the capital S streets.
Street smarts!
So, phase 2 begins. It is mainly evil Baldy having a total crash out and taking matters into his own hands by trying to shoot Toretto, but being shot back at by The Rock. The Big Dick Squad car is back, and we get some really nice shots of it driving away in clouds of smoke, but still, this one only gets a 17 out of 40. Trixie gets crushed by a literal building collapsing on top of him, but fear not, because heavily opiated Rock is here to move the pieces out of the way without flexing a muscle. And then everyone is having a crash out and starting to do CPR on Dominic without so much as to check his pulse first. Mid crash out, Letty gets her memories back and decides that her talking to Bodhi is going to be more effective than Brian's shitty CPR form, which turns out to be true, because by God, that form is bad. I'm not even questioning the lack of injuries on Dom. We know he's a superhero at this point. Shaw somehow also survives the whole debacle, and we get the setup for the Hobbs and Shaw spin-off when The Rock escorts him to a high-security prison. The final scene serves less as the usual "where are they now?" and more as a tribute to Paul Walker with sweet intentions but absolutely fucking terrible CGI, and of course a few families squeezed in. This movie makes no sense. Storylines are abandoned after one scene, Letty's PTSD ceases to exist out of plot convenience, continuity was certainly not considered by anyone ever. One said that the original ending, and I quote, was setting up, the bigger world of where the Fast and Furious franchise could go into. But that became irrelevant after Walker's death. After the team learned about the tragedy, they went back to the drawing board and tried to construct something out of the material that had already been shot and Paul's brothers as doubles.
As a filmmaker, you're faced with the technical challenges of finding the dialogue that you're cobbling together, the performance from his brothers and another actor.
I joke and I say I have a very big bag of cinematic tricks, and in this movie, I literally exhausted every single one of them to make this work.
The result is, absolute garbage, and as Schroed rightfully notes, morbid as it is, much of the inevitable pull of the movie is in trying to decipher what its original story might have been, how the filmmakers have bent it to fit logistics, and in figuring out which bits of footage actually feature Walker and which are stand-in with his face digitally superimposed. Guess what? It fucking wasn't. And we're still going strong in the family department, 11, just like in the last movie. And if you think this is too much, just wait till we get to Fast X. And guess what? This is officially the second movie of the franchise that passes the Bechdel test. Can I get a hell yeah, chicks rock? I mean, it barely passes, but one of the reasons it does is the Omegaverse conversation. So that's great. The trials and tribulations of reverse engineering a movie, however, pale in comparison to just how 2015 the soundtrack album is. That is to say, it's not too good. Turn Down for What is on there. And someone invited David Guetta again. Also, I'm gonna pretend See You Again doesn't exist because that track makes me furious for no reason. It makes my head hurt. So let's just say go hard or go home. But just note that my heart isn't behind this, at all. And as per Cars, they lose even more of the original trilogy swag, so the Rat W Motors Lycan Hypersport, also I don't care if I mispronounce that. Basically, the car that jumps between 3 skyscrapers is obviously the star of the show. The Race Wars cars had potential, but that was cut short by the script rewrites. And this is frankly just sad and uninspired, so let's move on.
Last night, I let the alcohol-free Corona do the talking, but this movie helped me find the right path again. The resemblance to Sex and the City 2 was uncanny. There was Abu Dhabi, Abu Dhabi was kind of it, but I knew I found something.
Pop culture corner time. 2017 was for sure a year, literally 6 out of 10 top movies by domestic gross were sequels of some sort. The Oscars famously had their La La Land and Moonlight mishap.
Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Beyonce was pregnant again, and Kendall Jenner ended police brutality with nothing but nepotism and a can of Coke. You know, I'm so sorry I ever made fun of Too Fast, Too Furious. Sometimes you just don't appreciate the until it's gone. Dominic and Letty are now in Cuba, where Vin Diesel is actively fighting the Spanish language with every word he utters.
Mira, amor, un motor de barco.
Which, relatable.
Hola, mi gente. Eso es rápido y furioso. Es muy increíble, pero tú sabes esto.
Baldy challenges some rando to a race because said rando is owed money by Dom's cousin and is trying to take the boy's car as payment. The man suggests they race a Cuban mile using Cuban nos, just in case you forgot this was in Cuba. Baldy Frankensteins together an absolute disaster of a car, and the first race of the movie commences. There aren't a lot of interesting shots, but the franchise has drone money now, which Gary Gray reminds us of every 0.2 seconds. And the music is deeply disappointing after the movie literally opened with Pitbull. Side note, by the way, they actually had to use a helicopter instead of a drone.
We had to bring in a helicopter from the United States, and we were the first production to bring American cars into Cuba since the embargo.
Which is arguably way cooler, but, you know, that doesn't make the scene less ass. Cuban nos takes painfully long to blow up, and Vin Diesel is apparently fire resistant, but this whole debacle is like a pretty solid representation of my brain on Red Bull. And I really like the rat car vibes going on, but still, this barely reaches 14 out of 40. The next day, some evil white lady with dreads shows up and blackmails Dom into working for her by showing him something we don't get to see, which, you know, is just great for us as an audience, because we are definitely so interested in that.
Oh, you're gonna want to work for me. You're gonna betray your brothers, abandon your code, and shatter your family.
Cut to The Rock, who's officially retired and is now coaching a girl youth football team, when he's approached by Mr. Nobody. And once again, short story short, the team gets together for yet another last job in order to steal an EMP in Berlin. Here's the thing. The movie attempts to try and give the villain her own capital P philosophy, but she ends up being a 14-year-old's idea of an edgy nihilist.
What's the best thing in your life?
Family.
No, it's not. Not if you're being honest. It's the 10 seconds between start and finish when you're not thinking about anything. No family, no obligations.
Instead of clarifying anything in regards to possibly the sloppiest plot of the franchise, Gary Gray literally cuts to the chase. This scene is relatively short, so we don't get to get a good look at the cars, but there's a wrecking ball involved, and it is very important to the plot, so 19 out of 40 overall. Now, why would this jumbled and incredibly underlit thing be important to the plot? Because Dom goes rogue and steals the AMP from the crew, entering his betrayal arc by serving face in front of the fog machine. Strike a pose. And letting the other Baldy go to prison. At said prison, Rock meets the bald boogeyman from the last movie, even though he was locked up in a completely different place in the post-credit scene in the previous movie. Honestly, it doesn't matter at this point. What am I expecting? No bald-on-bald crime per se takes place, but there is a riot facilitated by Mr. Some Guy, who waits for them to break out and then brings them to his new office.
I ain't on your team. I don't care about you, your crew, your little family.
There, we meet the mini Mr. Nobody, who this movie tries so hard to make the new Brian. And here's the thing. You cannot just get another guy with blue eyes and low-key Mormon face and put him in place of a guy with blue eyes and low-key Mormon face who was there for the first 7 movies. This feels extremely lazy, and the fact that a crucial character is no longer part of the group is never properly addressed. This new guy, obviously, no hate to the actor, he's just doing his job. But the character himself feels like Brian that you ordered on Wish.com. With that out of the way, let's move on. Apparently, the evil white lady with dreads is a super hacker who goes by Cypher, but I'm just gonna continue calling her evil white lady with dreads or Charlize Theron because that's who she is. The point is, Charlize Theron was the mastermind behind a lot of the previous bullshit that happened to the family, because she's a very evil white lady with dreads. She's so evil, in fact, that she kidnapped Elena and prepared to be gagged, like actually sit down and take a deep breath. She also kidnapped Dom's son.
Whose goddamn white baby is that?
And she's using them as ransom to turn Toretto against his crew.
I know, family is so important to you.
Meanwhile, at Mr. Nobody's office, the gang traces Dom's location by using God's eye, because they apparently cannot trace Charlize Theron's, since she's not only evil, but also a cool hacker, capital C, capital H. And it turns out that he's in the very same building.
I'm back in the fucking building again!
Baldy and the evil white lady with dreads burst into the office with concussion grenades and steal God's eye, throwing in some families.
Look at this. Your family's already replacing you. Let's go.
Dom! You gonna turn your back on family?
So that we don't forget what franchise this movie belongs to, as if we fucking could. With God's eye secured, evil white lady with dreads sends Dom to steal the nuclear codes from the Russian Minister of Defense, who is in New York for some fucking reason. While on the job, Baldy sneaks away to have a little mysterious kiki with Shaw's mother, but then we finally get a chase scene that, after all those attempts at creating a cohesive plot and tension, feels like a breath of fresh air. Sometimes you don't want to watch bad writing on screen. Sometimes you just want to see a car go fast. And is it that wrong? Charlize Theron hacks the cars to drive themselves, because that's how hacking works, and because this huge franchise apparently needs immense amounts of product placement in order to finance itself. Dom full-on turns into a superhero with a fit to go with it.
Boy! He got that shit on though.
The music is still practically non-existent, and so this one clocks in at 14 out of 40. But fear not, we don't have to go back to the pseudo-plot yet, because the gang pulls up and phase 2 of the chase ensues. There's a great moment of Dom trying to escape through a flower market and a full-on car clap. The grappling hooks also make a comeback at this point, which is so meta, and I love the white and red Bentley. The scene is important to the plot, but the music is very Marvel-esque and uninspired, so we reach a solid 24 out of 40. As my bestie said, someone was really playing with their Hot Wheels on this one. Over the course of the chase, the bald Shaw gets killed.
We do not care.
And then Letty steals the codes and Dom cannot get them back from her. So this evil ginger guy steps in, because of course an evil ginger guy would be working for an evil white lady with dreads. And with some pressuring from the evil ginger guy, Dom brings the case back to the base. At the base, the evil white lady with dreads kills Elena in front of Dom and the baby, because not killing people does not go with her edgelord philosophy. R.I.P. Cypher, you would have loved Reddit and Twitter.
This idea of family that is so core with you, that rules your world, it's a biological lie. I didn't take that football to start a war any more than I took your son to start a family. Taking your son got me the codes. The codes will get me the nukes, and the nukes will get me what I want today, tomorrow, and every day after that.
After that, Trixie is sent to a military base in Russia, I guess because they really wanted a snow action sequence, with one goal: using the EMP to let Charlize Theron hijack a nuclear submarine in order to destroy all of humanity, or whatever her nihilistic ass is trying to do.
All right, Dom, you're one step closer to that family reunion.
The crew follows suit, and nobody other than Roman has a fucking hat on, because I guess freezing your ears off is not a concern. Especially considering that most of them are from California. I feel like you should know that in Soviet Russia it is very cold. What are you doing? What is this behavior? This is not a runway. You are in Siberia. Some hijacking ensues, and then we get the next chase. Tash got the military propaganda tank, and Roman got that bright orange Ferrari, which is the least suitable car for the weather, but everything else is pretty boring. I do love that evil white lady with dreads gave Dominic a cunty little villain outfit, and also I love that one fuck-ass shot of the shells falling in slow-mo. The absence of any laws of physics is not amusing anymore, but grappling hooks make a comeback yet again, so overall it's a 22 out of 40. Prepare to be gagged again. The Baldshaw is not dead.
Oh, y'all wanted a twist, eh? Come on.
Fate of the Furious.
Let's get sickening.
And he, alongside his brother, sneaks onto Charlize Theron's plane to help Dominic.
No way I'm using Owen, alright? It's a lost cause.
He's your brother, Dex. He's our family. And our family don't die. Bloody cages.
But how did they find the plane? Well, prepare to be gagged again. Turns out, surprisingly to literally no one, Dom was double agenting this whole time because he would never betray the family. And the two Spanish-speaking dudes from earlier movies, Leo and Santos, as well as the Cuban dude Dom beat in the race at the beginning of this one, were helping him fake Shaw's death and track the location via a chip that Dom put in his cross necklace, because apparently he does that just in case. But this is all irrelevant. The most important part of this whole baby fight scene is that Alvin and the Chipmunks canonically exist within the Fast and Furious universe.
It's gonna get noisy. This is for your ears. Good?
And also T-Pain, because he was playing at that one party in the previous movie in Abu Dhabi, because of course they Abu Dhabi did. Now we don't know whether it's just the band or the movies as well, but this was the highlight of our viewing experience, if I'm being honest. Also, we get even more family when the bald Shaw confronts the evil white lady with dreads.
You've a lot to answer for, Cypher. You put my family through. I'm gonna make sure that never happens again.
Back at the Russian military base, as soon as Dom hears that his son is safe, he kills the evil ginger guy and joins the family in trying to stop the submarine, prompting the last chase scene of the movie. The music is very much giving classic superhero, yet the ridiculousness ascends to a whole another level when Rock manually redirects a Tomahawk missile. And by manually, I mean he literally grabs it with his hand and changes its trajectory. However, at this point, my head started to hurt so bad from how terrible this attempt at a movie is that I found it hard to enjoy the silly, goofy guys doing silly, goofy shit. The cars are pretty much the same, the only difference being the addition of submarine. But I found the shot where everyone shoots Dom from the explosion to be very visually interesting, at least. And this is the main standoff, so it's plot relevant. So the total comes out to 22 out of 40.
I'm just throwing it out there. And we need to get up out of here, because there's all kind of nuclearism happening under this ice.
When the crew does get out of there, Mr. Sam Guy and Wish.com Brian visit our guys to tell them that evil white lady with dreads is still at large and is going to be making a comeback in the later movies. They also offer The Rock his cop job back, which he declines. And somehow everyone is okay with accepting the guy who killed Han into their family, and Shaw himself is somehow not thirsty for revenge anymore. Dom names his son Brian because nothing says appreciating your friend who's no longer here like trying to replace him with another white dude with scary blue eyes. And finally, we get our last portion of families.
You've heard me say that you never turn your back on family, and I want to thank you all for never turning your back on me. Everyone, meet Brian. Thank you for giving us family.
Also, just on a real note, right? Within the Fast and Furious universe, they say multiple times that Brian is babysitting the kids. He's a white picket fence dad now. He's just so over it. He's retired. Which, first of all, how the fuck do you do that? You're an internationally wanted criminal. How the fuck do you do that? How do you just retire? And second of all, that's so fucking weird. Naming your child like dramatically with all that feeling after a friend who's just like in the next house over. I mean, that could be sweet. However, the vibe, you know, the decision to name your child Brian without your friend named Brian, who you're naming the child after, being aware of it, it's weird. It's giving weird. It's giving insane behavior. It's giving unresolved homoerotic tension. It's giving sloppy writing. I hate it. They could have, and I think they should have, killed Brian off as a character and had the other characters confront the fact that what they are doing could very well kill them. It's very dangerous, and they like lost a friend because of that. However, they're not doing this because, oh my god, that would take too much effort, and we cannot be putting too much effort into Fast and Furious movies. I hate this. I hate this with my whole heart. I have a very strong opinion about it, which, you know, I obviously have strong opinions about things. You're fucking however many hours deep into this video, but this specific one makes my blood boil. Absolutely makes me mad. Now, would you be surprised if I told you this movie passes the Bagnell test? Because it does. I cannot believe Vin Diesel was the original suffragette. Also, there are 17, and yes, you heard that right, 17 whole mentions of family in this movie. That's a capital F family drop every 8 minutes. And that's not even excluding the credits. Just how much family is enough? Stay tuned to find out. And The Fate of the Furious, once again, promises to be the last job.
We've got one last job to do.
So that was a fucking lie.
The cars, to no one's surprise, are not given in the slightest. I'll just go with the one and the only jerry-rigged disaster of a NOS bomb that Dom was driving in Cuba. And as per the music, I don't exactly have much to say. This is the weakest soundtrack album so far, but I know that there's a shisha bar owner somewhere who like swears by it. He doesn't play about it. On a serious note though, imagine having Rico fucking Nasty on your soundtrack and it's somehow still being bad. Like, that takes talent. I'm not gonna pick a favorite, I'm just gonna put down speaker box because I have to put something down. Also because after 15 replays trying to find something good on this godforsaken album, I started to appreciate that this is the closest to dubstep old bold man Diesel can apparently handle.
How did not Brian factor into this? Did the power of the blue-eyed stare hold the franchise together? Or were they adding more scary Mormon-looking men to throw me off my rhythm? Were Charlize Theron's wonky dreads profound social commentary on South African apartheid? Or were they just that? Wonky dreads. Could this hair be a humiliation ritual everyone joining the franchise was subjected to?
This movie pissed me off royally. Gary Gray knows how to direct movies that make sense, as evident by Straight Outta Compton. Notice how I didn't say Straight Outta Compton was a good movie, because the bar is in hell, but that movie made sense. And The Fate of the Furious is all mambo fucking jumbo that does not make sense, from the pseudo-profound philosophy of the evil white lady with dreads to Nan Bryan and how characters easily go from trying to take each other out to being bros, even though they are supposed to be protective of the capital F family. I'm not asking for a movie to make a lot of sense, but give me at least something. I guess this is what happens when you switch directors every movie and give the reins to a man whose ego far outweighs his storytelling abilities. 2019, the year when a picture of an egg became the most liked Instagram post. I feel like that fact really sets the tone, you know. 2019 was also the year of kind of good movies, ? We got The Lighthouse, we got Us, we got Midsommar, so things were looking up. Well, that is, until Hobbs and Shaw came out. Okay, so this might sound insane, but this movie is the most philosophically sound one in the franchise. Yes, it's sloppy, but it feels like a breath of fresh air after the train wreck that was The Fate of the Furious. This is also the only movie I watched alone, so it made me ultra miserable. The movie opens with Hetty, an MI6 agent, still in a case containing a deadly virus dubbed Snowflake that can supposedly wipe out humanity in days. And I'm not gonna comment on either part of that.
Predicting the COVID-19 pandemic and its consequences.
And then straight up cyborg Idris Elba shows up and kills everyone on the Girl Bosses team, framing the blondie in the process. Yeah, the franchise is now past Man Who Defied Gravity. We're moving on to our own version of the Terminator. Also, just how many bald men does Fast and Furious need? So Blondie with the bob,
What's your name, POB, so they calling you Bob?
injects the virus into herself, because what the hell, sure, and escapes. Cut to a very The Devil Wears Prada-esque montage of The Rock's and Shaw's morning routines, and at first I hee-heed and ha-ha'd at seeing Nietzsche on The Rock's side table, but then I saw that his morning routine included drinking raw eggs and eating coffee powder, and suddenly Nietzsche made sense.
It is indeed us.
Shaw visits his mom in prison, where he's scolded once again for not being part of the family.
I wonder we left the family business.
Both of the Baldies are recruited by CIA agents Ryan Reynolds and another equally annoying man to try and bring the girl boss in before Idris Elba gets to her. All while in the background, Rock's daughter has an identity crisis due to a lack of connection to Samoan culture or her family.
It's a social studies assignment. It's family tree.
Oh, yeah. That's our family tree right there. It's super easy to read and very clear.
Why don't you ever talk about Samoa?
Fact of the matter is, I'm your family. I'm your people.
The two meet up and do the classic "I'm not gonna work with him" bit, but as per usual they do because they are both bald. Shaw goes to the girl boss's apartment to investigate, and The Rock goes to find the girl herself, bringing her into the office, where we learn that the virus is stashed in her body in capsules that nobody knows how to get out. There's also a very badly executed callback to the Rock eyebrow meme. I had to watch it, so you have to watch it too. Cyborg Idris Elba breaks into the office, and we get the first chase scene of the movie. Finally, it's one that has actual music playing in the background. Who cheered? Shaw is driving a sleek sports car, and I'm not sure if a cyborg counts as a car or not, so I'll give him 2 points. The cinema is not exactly cinema-ing, but the car under the truck bit is back, and the motorcycle shots are pretty interesting. The plot is kind of irrelevant, if I'm being honest, since we ultimately end up at the same place the chase started at, but it also serves as a trigger for some of the future events. So 22 out of 40. Shaw also reveals that the girl boss is his sister.
Besides, that's my sister. Family business.
And now the whole thing with Rock being into her is even weirder. As it turns out, Cyborg Idris Elba works for a tech cult called Ideon, who saved him and made him into a superhuman after he was shot multiple times by Shaw. The fuckers at Ideon are trying to force human evolution by eliminating all the weak.
It's giving Hitler?
And blending humans and computers to achieve peak math skills or whatever the fuck. This is where the philosophy aspect of the movie comes in, and we really turn to the human versus machine battle for supremacy.
I saw this video of a lady pushing a robot, and good. Fuck these fools.
The trio tracked down Andrejko, a scientist who initially worked with Ideon on the Snowflake, which he intended to be used as a way to deliver vaccines all over the world, but then the evil computer man acted like evil computer man and took his project away from him and reprogrammed it to be used as a biological weapon. So in order to both stop the virus and save Girl Boss's life, the crew needs to head to Chernobyl. So naturally, the British Baldy does some hacking and creates new identities for all of them.
My cock's mole.
So that they could hop on a plane where they meet Kevin Hart, because Ryan Reynolds was not enough to complete the annoying non-character prophecy. There's more low-key threats from Shaw and Rock that have to do with the potential Rock-girl boss relationship, and in the wise words of my best friend, sibling cucking is like another big thing of the franchise. The Rock also says this to a random old lady.
I love your babushka.
And like, not to be mean, but her babushka is probably long dead, so that's a little weird of him. The scene is also the fourth mention of a megaverse in the franchise.
I get it, we all big guys. The three of us, alphas.
It's truly, you know, a gift that keeps on giving, even though you didn't ask it to be giving. After a short stop in Moscow, where we meet Shaw's lady and the three up their arms arsenal, they sneak into the X power plant, now evil lab, where a bunch of action sequences that I'm not gonna recap happen. Also, just from like a geographical standpoint, right? How exactly do you go from Moscow to Chernobyl within what is implied to be like a few hours? How do you fucking do that? How I would like to see you fucking do that. I would like to see you try. I get it, because of the Red Scare, you know, there's just Soviet Russia and nothing else. But you could look at a map. You could have maybe just Googled. You could have just made Shaw's girlfriend Ukrainian, but they did none of that. They gave us... Then, Cyborg Idris Elba butts heads with the other Baldies as he tries to convince them to join Ideon, but they insist on the opposite. And finally, a car chase ensues when they steal Shaw's sister and the virus extraction machine. The cars are boring, but the music is still a great step up from the previous installments of the franchise, and the cinema of it all isn't lacking either, and the plot of the chase is like pivotal to what happens next, so it's a 24 out of 40. As they escape, the extraction device is damaged and the scientist who created it is killed, so Girl Boss has a reasonable crash out and suggests they just give up and cremate her like Andreyka initially suggested.
Remember who we are, the Shaw family. Never, never, never give up.
And The Rock goes, "Oh, I know a guy." So they call up Kevin Hart, who helps them hitch a ride from Moscow for some fucking reason, even though the Kyiv airport is way closer and the Moscow one is like 12 hours away by a train. Doesn't even matter. The point is, they go to Samoa.
Coming here after 25 years, you betrayed our family. Bring shame on our house.
Because Rock's estranged brother is apparently the only mechanic / tag guy capable of something like this, since Ramsey and Taj do not exist in this version of the FF universe. Maybe they just didn't have the budget for Taj and Ramsey, you know.
We could die! Good!
We get some backstory on the fact that Rock's dad was a deadbeat who got his children into illegal shit.
Sounds just like my family.
And Rock was the only one who refused to join.
So I turned him in.
Or you protect your family.
So there was a big falling out, yada yada. Doesn't matter, honestly. It doesn't matter at all. They could have skipped the scene completely. They could have just been like, yeah, there was like a lot of family fighting or whatever. Jonah, the brother, initially refuses, but after a promise of an ass whooping from their mother, he decides to help. Also revealing that he went legit since their dad's been out of the picture.
Custom shop, international clients needed to do something to hold our family together after you abandoned us.
While Jonah does his thing, everyone else sets up traps around the island in preparation for Ideon's inevitable visit.
Mama, where's all our guns?
I get rid of them. Guns kill all my family.
All right, we're going to war with the family heirlooms.
And we also get a kiss between The Rock and Girl Boss after they both reflect on the family.
I've been back here in 25 years. I mean, my own daughter doesn't even know her family.
You can change that.
By doing some extra hacking, the crew disables the bad guys' guns in order to level the playing field. As Cyborg Idris Elba realizes there's going to be hand-to-hand combat, the guys perform a haka. And I'm telling you, this movie is where Rock was like, this is a Polynesian franchise now.
Now I'm forcibly
Polynesianizing
you, bitch. Sorry. You are now going to get forcibly
Polynesianed.
Cyborg Idris Elba snags the Girl Boss while the extracting machine is in progress, and the final chase ensues. NAS and cooled modified cars are back. There's an impressive car chain sequence situation, and I really like the whole brass thing going on music-wise. The whole new tech versus family and traditions and swag thing plays nicely into the plot, so a solid 29 out of 40 and an S tier placement from yours truly. After Cyborg Idris Elba's helicopter crashes, we return to the whole human versus machine aspect of the movie.
What's the problem, boys? Does it hurt? Must be hard being so human.
You can abuse a robot. That's the only thing left we have as humans, is we can abuse robots.
And surprisingly to literally no one, their humanity and them working together is what helps the Baldies win, with Ideon literally turning Cyborg Idris Elba off once he stops being a valuable asset, because because that's what fuckers tag billionaires do. They extract the virus and send it off somewhere secure. The Shaw siblings visit their mom in prison and help her escape, which honestly, I'm such a fan of that woman. The Rock takes his daughter to Samoa to meet the rest of the family. And just when you think that all is said and done, and humanity is not, in fact, doomed, Ryan fucking Reynolds appears on screen.
Tell me you took care of the snowflake.
I got it. It's done. Okay? Because I care about people. I care about our family.
Dude, we're not family.
I know. What we have is so much deeper.
He also lays the groundwork for further movies by telling the viewer that there's a new, deadlier virus roaming free now. Which isn't interesting the way this scene looks now. Now, this movie is very confusing to me. While The Rock is shown to be so into Nietzsche that he keeps a book of his on his nightstand and quotes him freely,
there's more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophies.
Oh, let me guess. Bruce Lee?
No. Nietzsche.
the very message of the movie and the position the MCs assume is, as I'd argue, anti-Nietzschean.
Brother, you may believe in machines, but we believe in people. We may have all the technology in the world. We have heart. No machine will ever beat that.
This is still a painfully testosterone-filled, dragged-out movie, but one that has something resembling a point about capital F family and capital H humanity. Don't get used to it though, because we're going back to fuzz, but not before going through the motions you should already be used to. A movie with a strong female protagonist should easily pass the Baghdad test, right? I said, setting up a shocking reveal. No, it doesn't. But it does have 15 mentions of family, which surprisingly is like actually thematically relevant for once. I wouldn't be shocked if they introduced the whole Samoan family plot in order to keep the word in rotation though. Hobbs and Shaw also does not promise to be the one last job, which in my books is a win because it breaks the cursed streak that's been going on for 4 movies straight now. Another thing the movie does relatively well, I'm saying relatively because it's only in comparison, is the soundtrack. It's like really fun action movie music, nothing to write home about, but also nothing particularly infuriating. Better as One goes best with the movie, and it's my ultimate pick. But I do have to shout out Fucking With The Boss remix by Grandson because I love Grandson. Most of the cars still suck, but a couple of Aston Martins in Shaw's garage are cool, and the NOS trucks in Samoa just sweep this category. And I'm not even gonna pick one because I deserve to fuck up a rule after everything this franchise has put me through. And speaking of the franchise, let's get back to its MCs, because if I spend one more second talking about this movie, Vin Diesel will try to sue me, allegedly.
They knew I was looking into the franchise, and Hobbs and Shaw, surprisingly topical in 2025, was just a distraction designed to confuse me. But I am built different, and no amount of light reflected off these bald heads can blind me. I finally struck gold.
Justin Lin is back, but that's not a good thing. The year is 2021. We are still deep in the pandemic. Your relatives are probably sharing vaccine conspiracy theories on Facebook and WhatsApp. All the movies you wanted to see are indefinitely postponed. But you know which movie did pull through? F9, The Fast Saga. The sheer momentum of Vin Diesel's bald head charging through reality cannot be stopped by some pathetic pandemic. That man is like a lubed up bowling ball rolling down the steps of the movie making process. And there's not a force in the universe that can put an end to this. Sadly, they finally go to space in this one. We open with a flashback to 1989, which is also the first race scene of the movie. We get old school cunty cars, pretty solid cinematography with a cool in-between cars shot that is reminiscent of the earlier installments of the franchise. The music is unimpressive, but this very race is extremely important to the plot of the movie and the franchise overall, I would argue, because we actually get to see Dom's dad die.
Oh my fucking god, she fucking dead.
28 out of 40. Cut to present-day Toretto living in the middle of nowhere with Letty and kid Brian, when suddenly Roman and no longer bald Taj pull up and tell him that Mr. Nobody sent them an SOS message that went something along the lines of, "I got Charlize Theron, but my plane was hijacked and someone stole her."
Please, someone come and rescue me.
Dom initially refuses to do the job, but then, when Vin Diesel attempts really hard to be a dramatic actor, he notices a familiar cross necklace and decides to just ditch his kid.
Whose goddamn
mixed
baby is that?
As we later learn, he drops him off at Mia and Brian's. And so he goes, joining the others without explaining his motives. Because of course they would just blindly trust him after he, like, low-key betrayed them.
You know what? Hell yeah.
The crew tracks Mr. Some Guy's plane to Monte Quinto, where they find a half of the device called Ares, which is kind of like this movie's God's Eye, because you can do all kinds of hacking with it, and like get nukes or whatever, which is honestly just largely irrelevant to the plot. To distract us from the fact that none of this raises any kind of stakes or makes sense for that matter, the movie gives us a painfully long chase scene when John Cena pulls out of nowhere with a whole private army. Hey! What? Come here. There are some ugly Cybertruck-esque cars, a motorcycle, and a jeep so armored it looks more like a tank. The music is the same old boring instrumentals, and the scene only serves to introduce John Cena into this whole debacle.
我很喜欢冰淇淋，但是速度与激情就1、2、3，2个礼拜以后。
So overall, this shit sucked mega cockless and therefore only reached the low score of 8 out of 40. The only good parts of this whole thing are Roman and the whole Jeep tank falling onto a landmine situation he gets himself into.
How in the hell are you not dead?
And Dominic doing the cliff swing that feels very Fast 5 in terms of theatrics. So John Cena gets picked up by an airplane when he finally steals the big scary device thingy, and the team meets up with that one FBI agent who worked with Brian back in the day, and then Dom finally tells them his brother is involved, because of course he wouldn't disclose that, because his brother is apparently not part of the family. We're back to 1989, where the guy who killed Dom and John Cena's dad shows up, and Dom, as we know from previous movies, bits the shit out of him and goes to jail. End of useless flashback. The actors playing the younger versions of Dom and John Cena look nothing like them. Like, they just got a random mixed kid and shaved his head and are trying to pretend the two look anything alike. It's kind of mind-boggling, actually. We are then introduced to a rich asshole whose daddy is some kind of head of state. He's John Cena's co-criminal, and he wants the thing because world domination and, like, nukes or whatever. I've told you, they, like, didn't even try with motivation on this one. Charlize Theron is also there, and we learn that in order to complete the thing, you need both halves and the key, which is stashed God fucking knows where. Dominic and company go to Mr. Nobody's old office where Mia joins them because it all is a family matter. And I guess she didn't want to babysit the kids, so now Brian's the one doing that. Yes, instead of writing Brian's death into the script and making the characters confront the fact that what they do is terribly dangerous and grieve their friend, which could give them more depth, the writers first try to replace him with another white guy and then just say he's babysitting the kids. Another thing they do is deliver a half-baked attempt at a meta joke through Roman.
Y'all ever thought about how many wild missions we've been on and we somehow always survive?
You two may be suggesting that we're what? Invincible?
Maybe.
Maybe, or maybe, you're just a dumbass.
You might think this movie's been lacking on the twist side, but fear not, for we're about to have 2 in a row.
My one thing was I went into the
plot twist
building and I sat down with the president of the
plot twist.
I said, I want to make history.
The writers just cannot let Hans' death go, so they rewrite it again and tell us that the poor dude was also working with Mr. Some Guy. Anyways, flashback! Dominic does car stuff for his work release program where he meets Leo and Santos, the 2 Spanish-speaking dudes who don't seem to have personalities outside of arguing in Spanish and pop up every few movies to remind us of their existence. They also tell Dom that the car he's working on has a defect that effectively turns it into a bomb, and Bodhi realizes the same thing happened to his dad's car. So he gets mad as fuck at Jacob, John Cena's character, and blames him for their father's death. Once he's out of jail, he challenges John Cena to a race. The cars are pretty old school and very much understated. There's finally some music, even though it should. And the Torettos agree that if John Cena loses, he's banished from the family house, which serves as the main motivation for all future John Cena's doings. We get to see the classic Dom hydraulics and some slow-mo, but most importantly, the big Toretto stare-off. So overall, this gets 26 out of 40. Back to the Future, where Dom visits the mechanic who took John Cena in, mostly so that he could drop the first F-bomb of the movie.
The worst thing you can do to a Toretto is take away their family.
Letty and Mia go to Tokyo to try and figure out what Han was doing when he died, where they not only find Han's child, whom he's never mentioned, but Han alive and well, too. I cannot keep doing this, man. Meanwhile, Roman and Taj go to Germany to meet up with the balding Jesus and gun-loving high schooler from the third movie, his friend and fan favorite Twinkie, and some other guy. The three now spend their time building rocket engines and strapping them onto cars, which prompts the next mini-race scene when the Tokyo crew tries to outrace a fucking jet. 10 out of 10 for the car, but everything else is lacking, so the total only comes out to 18 out of 40.
Easy. Now you try. First, get a jar. Patrick, that's a rocket launcher?
Yes.
Dom goes to London in order to find his brother, and Shaw's mom makes a little cameo as she's running away from the cops and simultaneously taking Dom to see John Cena, as well as delivering the next few families.
This geezer was about your height, actually. Similar features.
He's my brother.
Dad, I'm not the only one with a family full of eccentrics. You know, nothing's more powerful than the love of family. Turn that into anger and resentment. Nothing's more dangerous.
Naturally, her music theme has brass because she's British, and that's how things work in this franchise. But this chase itself is irrelevant to the plot, so it's a 18 out of 40. The Toretto brothers almost kill each other, and then Dom is arrested by fake Interpol, which is ran by Cardi B, of all people, who Dom is apparently friends with.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
There's also an F-word drop that I personally don't think qualifies because it's not about capital F family.
Here I thought my dad was a pain in the ass. Your family is a train wreck.
I still included it in the final score because I think it can be interpreted both ways. The crew sends Mia, Letty, and Han meets in Edinburgh, where they find the rich boy trying to steal the second half of the device by sneaking under the radar by using a huge magnet in order to disrupt all possible types of signal. Cue a chase scene where Ramsey learns how to drive and Dom and his brother beat the shit out of each other, which is honestly the most siblings thing you can do, like, ever. You know the drill. The music does not deliver, and the cinema, other than one cool shot of the red car being pulled by the magnet, is not quite cinema-ing.
Fast and Furious.
However, utilizing magnets does become a big thing later in the movie, and I do love Dom's car that my best friend dubbed the understated European Ford, so this scene gets 21 out of 40. The crew brings John Cena back to the base and locks him in a cell, because Brian might be out of the game, but his pig ways aren't. There, we learn that Han's daughter is the girl he saved when somebody tried to outsteal him, and in the process, killed her parents, the creators of Project whatever the project's name is. I don't remember and I don't care.
Han saved me. We became a family.
The girl in question is the key to unlocking the project's power. So in order to protect Han and Elle, the key, Mr. Nobody helped him fake his death. And right around there, Richie Rich storms the safe house and John Cena announces that he was the one to betray Mr. Some Guy. The Toretto brothers fight again, which once again very sibling of them. And in the most expected twist ever, it is revealed that John Cena didn't intentionally kill their dad, but instead was trying to help their dad lose the race and fake his death because he was in debt and wanted to escape to take the pressure off the family. And like, what happened to just leaving the country? What happened to just going away? What happened to getting a job? When the two are done hashing out the family drama, rich guy's army takes Al and the computer part and tries to escape. The crew chases after them, and then Dominic starts breaking the building with his bare hands, falling right into a hallucination where he dreams of his dad, brother, and son.
70 charges are designed so well that if you take care of them, they'll run for 100 years.
Immortal?
Just like a family now.
And here's a question. When did we get so surrealistic with this franchise? He survives, of course, and jumps right back into the game where Richie Rich has launched a satellite into orbit and is driving through the streets of Tbilisi while establishing connection with that thing. We get another overlong chase sequence where Dom and company try to stop the bad guys and save the girlie, and in the meanwhile, John Cena gets betrayed by his boyfriend and joins the family. The family uses magnets to inconvenience the rich asshole. We get a Toretto to Toretto stare, and Taj and Roman go to space and use space NOS when they decide to sacrifice themselves to destroy the satellite. This, by the way, is my favorite moment from that chase scene. This is beautiful. This is true Shasha culture right here. The music is uninspired, but this scene is the first one in the franchise to use the Wilhelm scream. So even though it only scores 20 out of 40, I awarded an S tier placement. Also because of the minions. And because I loved Tbilisi. Let me explain the low plot score. Without the satellite, Richie Rich cannot activate the device. So why did the team not just hit it with a rocket or something? They have a rocket, we've seen it. They could have just launched Vin Diesel, threw him really hard at the satellite. Why did they have to Belka and Strelka poor Roman and Taj? The answer is they obviously didn't. The chase is highly irrelevant to the plot, and the only part of the crew that gets things done is Rome and Taj, who are in space. I mean, I am willing to embrace the absurdity and the camp of it all, but this level of not making sense is a whole new brand of fucking around and finding out. Well, rather just fucking around and never finding out. That aside, we get one last chase when Charlize Theron, Richie Rich's new accomplice, flies into the picture and tries to kill Dom, but ends up killing Richie Rich instead. It doesn't exactly have a big influence on the plot, giving you a short-lived satisfaction of seeing ex-evil white lady with dreads die, only to reveal that she's actually flying a simulator drone seconds later. There literally is not a single car involved. We've got the jet and the bus thing, and it's not exactly spectacular, especially when compared to the rest of the franchise, so this disgrace gets a shameful 6 out of 40. Rome and Taj get picked up by the French astronauts just in time to make it to the Corona-sponsored cookout at the old Toretto residence, where we get the last family of the movie.
We got some rough times ahead, but it's gonna be okay, because we're family.
At the very end, Brian pulls up to the house because living off the grid apparently does not mean not seeing your family full of highly sought after super spies and internationally wanted criminals. And just when you think you're done with the movie, the bald Shaw shows up to use a man as a punching bag by literally stuffing him inside a punching bag. Han enters Baldy's residence and scene. Fucking finally. This movie feels like they finally gave up. And after the last 3 were soft launching the franchise's end, I'm just annoyed and kind of exhausted at the same time. You don't need me to tell you this movie's full of sloppy writing, overused and overcomplicated character archetypes and dynamics, bald man's egos, color grading that is too dark to properly see anything, and fucking fugly CGI. You already know it, so let's just move on to the real juicy stuff. You know, when I said they gave up, I meant it. The movie stopped pretending every job was the last, because we all know that as long as humanity exists, Vin Diesel is going to be fast, and by God, will his movies make me furious. There is a measly 7 mentions of family in this movie, and I'm being gracious here, because since the filmmakers ran out of chosen family, they had to switch to literal siblings and parents, so I could disqualify a number of them, but I reasoned everything that's in this gray zone counts, because why the fuck not? This is my video, so if I said it counts, it does. Good news though, we got yet another movie that passes the Bagno test. I mean, barely, but it does. All because Mia and Letty talk to each other in Tokyo. And even though they talk about motherhood for all of like 3 seconds, it's not about a man. So, yay, feminism. When it comes to the cars and the music, though, things aren't as bright. They are really dark, actually. I don't know how a franchise can manage to have Rico Nasty on its soundtrack twice and have the songs be ass both times. I guess when you agree to do a soundtrack, your skill, talent, and swag just temporarily go out the window. That said, I pick Lane Switcha as my favorite, but I don't do it with my whole heart behind it. Drinking like I hit my liver. Similarly, my whole heart is definitely nowhere near behind the rocket-equipped Pontiac Fiero, but it's the only interesting one. Also, knowing that somewhere out there in the American South, Lucas Black would probably have a stroke if I explained my gender or sexuality to him definitely adds some points. It makes it a little more interesting. It gives it a little more zhuzh, if you will.
It was all starting to make sense. The amount of bald man, the insane plot armor they had, the questionable quality of the franchise, the cringe of it all. I just had to make sure I was right by conducting a top-notch investigation into the matter.
And so we move on to the last the last so far, because Vin Diesel has threatened to release another one in 2026. 2023 is the year that I got my bachelor's and moved halfway across the continent, but some other stuff happened too, I guess. It was the year of Barbenheimer, the year of Britney's memoir, and the writer's strike. I mean, one of them is definitely connected to Fast X, but I won't tell you which one. Is it Fast X or Fast 10? You know what? Fast 10 your seatbelts, let's go. Remember the movie where Dominic Toretto started killing people? The one with the Brazilian drug lord? Well, that drug lord has a son named Dante, whose whole thing is getting revenge, apparently.
Today we'll put our family on a path to real power.
And here's the thing. I'm not calling Jason Momoa's character Jason Momoa, because he does not play Jason Momoa. He plays a little freak who loves a good fit, which honestly, slay. Yes, he's not the best actor, but this franchise has long departed acting waters and moved into big car blows up territory. Cut to a cookout at the Torettos, the scene that is uniquely combining a Corona and a Tinder plug and editing so atrocious it makes you nauseous. We also meet Dom's supposedly Cuban granny.
As I look out at this wonderful family, I am filled with so much pride.
Taj, Han, Rome, and Ramsey go on a mission in Rome.
Missione.
Courtesy of Mr. Nobody's agency. And in their absence, Charlize Theron, with a way better haircut, shows up all bloody and still wearing pleather.
I've imagined killing you 1,000 times.
What happened to hello? What happened to how are you? She tells Dom and Letty that Dante turned her team against her and is coming for Dom and his family. Not Brian shows up and arrests her, simultaneously informing the crew that there isn't any job going on in Rome right now, and that it's actually a trap Dante orchestrated. There's also one, haha, this man is doing gay things, but he's not, joke.
I even tried swiping right on Han's dating app.
That, if you reach far enough, gives us this franchise's first canonically non-straight character, which is wild to think about considering how big of an ensemble we've got going on.
Bob and Susie don't want to go see Fast and Furious driven by a fag.
That movie's gonna be over quick because gays aren't good drivers.
Cue the chase in Rome. It has a little bobblehead of Taj.
Cute Tiny Ted! Wait, hold up. Tiny Ted? What are you talking about, Roman?
A very cool reflective car that Roman uses to blind the drivers behind him, a Death Star looking bomb that blows up the Vatican, some solid shots, cunty Italian rap that sadly transitions to an instrumental. This scene is also somehow important to the plot because it is used to frame the crew yet again, so the total comes out to 28 out of 40. And here's the thing about this crew, right? You don't need to frame them. They've done crimes. They've done all the crimes. Letty gets captured by Dante, which essentially creates the C-plot for this movie.
My family?
They're safe for now. Whoever did this wanted to sever your ties to the agency and isolate you from your family.
And somewhere between the last movie and this one, Mr. Nobody has disappeared, as Shaw's mom informs us. So there's a new blonde Jack sheriff in town, one who hates Toretto and his whole thing, but loves dropping F-bombs.
That's their MO, to corrupt law enforcement. Everyone becomes family.
This family has gotten their hands dirty to keep ours clean. We should be standing with Dom and his family. That is the very least that we can do.
He hates Toretto so much, in fact, that even cookouts are catching strays.
I'm asking for full green light authority. Kill or capture the Toretto clan by any means. As your direct superior, I don't give a shit about anybody's heart of gold, and I hate barbecues.
So the agency's new objective is to capture and or kill Toretto by any means. And Brie Larson is also there, and she's Mr. Some Guy's daughter that he conveniently has never mentioned. Back in LA, the agency's guys try to capture Mia and Little Brian, who looks nothing like the original Little Brian, but I guess we're rolling with the casting choices.
Whose goddamn
black
baby is that?
They are saved by John Cena, who now doesn't hate his brother, and who tells Mia to get away and takes Brian to a rendezvous point as per Dom's request.
Toretto has a sister, a son. Until we find him, find his family.
How were those guys?
Agency. Whole family's being targeted.
Also, we learned that Marky Mark is the third artist to officially exist within the FF universe. Just like, take a second to appreciate the lineup. T-Pain, Marky Mark, and Alvin and the Chipmunks. Dom and Brie Larson meet at a bar where she beats people up to Måneskin, and he asks her to help with getting Letty out. Dante shows up to raise Dom in Brazil.
I'm Dante. I'm Shante. And you are fantastico. Fabuloso. O cara.
Are we about to kiss right now?
And we get the second car-centric scene of the movie.
Ball through the city was a bit of an homage to my family's safe.
The cars are at least somewhat interesting. Dante has this whole purple thing going on where his fit matches his car, which also matches his nails. The cinema is cinema-ing, and Gasolina is playing in the background, which earns this scene 33 out of 40 and an S tier placement. Because, you know, I just couldn't let Gasolina slide. We also meet Elena's little sister, who was never mentioned before. This franchise has shifted to invented siblings, I guess, because they just ran out of any other possible combinations of family.
You know, Elena, she knew everything about the Reyes family.
Later, Dante hangs out with corpses and steals all of the crew's money. Because even with at least 2 hackers on the team, they didn't have any backup accounts. But you know who did? Roman, who's just been carrying cash with him this whole time, everywhere he went.
Please tell me you're not wearing Spanx.
I say Spanx. He's Banks.
Roman Pierce, you will forever be famous. So the little quartet goes to meet Pete Davidson upon their arrival to London.
Great, that's awesome. Well, you froze. Pete?
Bacon, bacon, bacon.
And they get the agency and Dante on their asses while Han gets high off a muffin.
Shout out to my reefer man. I just gotta thank God for him.
Keep in mind, this man is high out of his fucking mind for the remainder of the movie. By God, we do not need another FF movie, but I would watch this one reshot from Han's perspective.
Hey, guys, this is a family environment.
They go to meet Shaw, who happily hashes it out with Han after fighting alongside each other for all of 30 seconds. I guess that's all it takes. And oh, look! Debbie Ryan and Josh Dunn are there, for whatever reason. Meanwhile, Dom goes to the old police station where he finds Dante's hater vision board.
Now let me say I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk.
Family? They're safe for now.
You built such a beautiful life, filled with love and family.
Without honor, you got no family. Without family, you got nothing.
I have nothing because of you, my future, my family. You stole that from me.
But he's then caught by the blonde agency guy. And when they're on the very same bridge Dom killed the drug lord on, Dante shows up. He reiterates that he's mad at Dom and steals God's eye, but then Brie Larson shows up in a Hillary Clinton power suit to fight him.
Family.
I know this movie came out in 2023, but it's so like painfully 2016. If you know what I'm talking about. There's some ballet talk.
Joy ballet, high door swan lake.
Which gives me the opportunity to plug my Swan Lake video that YouTube didn't show to anyone. So go watch that once you're done here. And there are even more F-bombs in this scene.
You know what your problem is? Family.
Your legacy is in money or power, or the family you built, or the life you led.
Okay, now that this is out of the way, let's get back to the plot, if you can call it that. In Antarctica, Letty wakes up in a medical facility next to Charlize Theron, who uses the anesthetic gas to put the guards to sleep and get them out.
You're not going to sleep forever. Don't you want to get back to your precious family?
Instead of getting out first and then beating the shit out of each other, they bit the shit out of each other for a while before deciding to work together. Something you might call a typical Hobbs and Shaw mistake. While all of this is happening, John Cena shoves little Brian inside of a car that has cannons strapped to it, which love, and tries to get away from the pursuit, which turns into this long-ass chase scene. Long scene short, John Cena dies, grappling hooks come back, they do that thing where they throw Brian in between cars, which at this point has become, a staple of the franchise. The music is boring, and we cannot estimate the scene's effect on the further plot because this movie is a fucking two-parter. Oh, did I forget to mention that? Well, so did the creators. This chase, therefore, remains unranked. Then, the blonde agency guy reveals he's been working for Dante this entire time, and he's the one who helped him trap Dom on a dam full of explosives.
See, that's the problem with having a big family. Can't protect them all.
Like, the Snow Name has been on Dom's side for all of 10 minutes. Is this supposed to be a shocking twist? Are we supposed to care?
You think everyone's gonna end up on your side? Problem is, Amsel's mine first.
Clap if you care.
Today we'll put our family on a path to real power.
I took your money, I took your freedom, and I'm gonna take your family.
Anyways, Letty and Charlize Theron escape from the medical facility and meet the resident war criminal played by Gal Gadot, who's somehow alive even though she died in FF 6, but once again, clap if you care.
For my family, you can ransom me.
In the post-credit scene, which shows that The Rock and Vin Diesel can be on the same set again, we see Dante proclaim that he's also coming for The Rock in the upcoming movie, because Dom might have been behind the wheel, but Rock was the one who finished the drug lord off. The end. Did I hate this? Yes, sir, I absolutely did. But am I going to totally legally watch the next one when it comes out? Yes, sir, I absolutely will. I simply cannot just give up on the franchise after I spent all these months working on this monster of a tier list. I want to see how this ends. Also, I do appreciate true cringe art that comes from the heart. And by God, does Vin Diesel love doing stunts and talking about family. Investors into family stock. I know the last movie was hard on us all, but guess what? 24 whole F-bombs were dropped in Fast X. That's a family every 5 minutes and 40 seconds. Like the highest amount in the franchise. And also, this is the second movie in a row, again, to pass the Bagdell test. Can we get some party poppers in here? The other party poppers? Thank you.
Towards my face instead was not the answer.
I tried to not hit the lamp.
No, I was watching you look and twist. I was like, oh, fuck.
Me getting hospitalized because of party poppers, and now I have to clean this up. The cars, once again, suck. Most of them are fugly and boring, but the worst part is that cars carried the actors to the set and thus participated in this movie being made. I'll just say Dante's purple Chevrolet Impala because even though it's not great, it doesn't have terminal Tesla face. And as for the music, I think the intro to the album by Kai Cenat summarizes it perfectly.
Vin Diesel talk about it's family, of course it is. I'm not gonna lie, we went from racing to saving the whole entire world.
It's still very weak as an album, but it's better than the previous few, and we're even taking some shy steps towards funk territory, and Skrillex is there, which is a win. But let me tell you something. They finally played Gasolina in this one, and can anything really compare? So let's wrap this up and pick the fastest car and the most furious soundtrack.
I had finally solved the case. I was called crazy, a lunatic, a conspiracy theorist. But I knew those who keep their mind open would see that I was right. Vin Diesel and Sarah Jessica Parker are secretly the same person, fighting for media dominance among their respective audiences. Car and bag lovers. There isn't a single piece of evidence that can rebuff this. Just like Sex and the City was created as propaganda of bad taste in men and generally insane behavior, Fast and Furious was nothing more than a ruse constructed to establish global bold dominance and sell terrible tasting beer. Vin Diesel spent the last 24 years creating a cult of shiny hats and lukewarm corona, and if we didn't stop him, we would soon all be a little more fast and a little more furious.
So, what can I say? Not much. I mean, do you want me to keep talking after all this time? Of course you do. So let's move on and do some sweet ranking. Okay, so I had my lovely assistant, and by my lovely assistant, I mean my best friend who like co-wrote half the jokes, half the material for this fucking video, randomly set up the bracket, and I'm gonna be going through it one by one and explaining my line of thought, because you know, that's apparently what everyone wants to see. That's what everyone needs. Let me just zoom in. Meow! Between Shaw's car and Suki's car, I think that's obvious. You know, I chose Shaw's car out of necessity. I do have strong feelings about Suki's car. Between the purple Pontiac and the Big Dig squad car, I feel like it's obvious because the Big Dig squad car is so iconic to the franchise. Even though I do love the purple Pontiac, but I'm just not a purple person like that. Second round, this is a really tough one because I do love the Supra. I do love Suki's Honda. Let's go Suki's Honda because it's one of my faves. She really did stack this up, huh? Next, between the rocket launcher and the car that jumped between three, not one, not two, but three skyscrapers, I'm gonna go with the rocket launcher because it's a fun concept. I love it. Between the Big Dig squad car and the Cuban Nos debacle, I'm still gonna choose the Big Dig squad car because just the role, the gravitas of this car within the franchise, it's hard to overestimate. Between the Hulk car and this boring, just absolutely yawning, sloppy thing, we go with the Hulk car. The Hulk car is one of the best things that happened in this franchise. We're down to 4. Between Suki's car and the rocket launcher, I mean, obviously Suki's car, because this car is actually cool as a car, and this is like a fun concept, like a fun invention, right? It's not exactly giving car. And then between the Big Dig squad car and the Hulk car, it's a really fucking tough choice. But I feel like if I listen to my heart, it tells me the Hulk car. The last one, Suki's car and the Hulk car. Here's the thing. I do love Suki's Honda. I think it's beautiful. Hey, what are you doing? I love the concept. I love that everyone on the team is a girly, which is so like chicks rock, right? However, I'm really not unbiased because, you know, I am a simp for Suki. Like truly in my heart, within my soul, I feel like the Hulk car is the best because also it is like proven that it has insane stereo. I do value music while on the road, but Suki's car is like a strong second place. It's like a very solid contender. I'm going with the Hulk car. Especially considering that you hear constant failure instead of Fast and Furious.
I fully thought it was constant failure.
Okay, let us fucking go, as they might say. I don't know who they are, but they might say that. So, for the first one, this is between Go Hard or Go Home and Tokyo Drift. Do I even need to like clarify anything? This is garbage. I don't care for this. Tokyo Drift is iconic, is legendary. I love it. And then here is between Blanco and Furiously Dangerous. This is a hard one. Blanco can be like on my pregame playlist. It goes really hard. It's a good song to run to. Like doing anything with Blanco playing in the background is like cunty. However, I'm gonna go with Furiously Dangerous because just the amount of silly goofy shit that is in the song, it's astounding. I love it. So for the next one, Lane Switcher and Tokyo Drift. This isn't a real question. This isn't a real challenge because this part I feel like is more stacked up. Act a Fool or Better as One. Easy fucking breezy, beautiful. Act a Fool is obviously, you know, it's gonna take the cake. Then here it's between Furiously Dangerous and We Own It. Once again, it's just like a non-existent problem. This is so easy. Furiously Dangerous is obviously the winner because it goes extremely hard. And here, between Furious and Gasolina, I want to say Gasolina because as a song, it's iconic. As a soundtrack, it's iconic. When they played it in Fast X, me and my best friend literally were like, oh my god, this is an event. This went down in the history of this household. So for the final one is between Tokyo Drift and Act of Fool. I do love Act of Fool, however, just by how iconic this one is and how long it has been like a staple and mecca in pop culture. And then Furiously Dangerous versus Gasolina. Let's do Furiously Dangerous. I didn't think it would get this far, but then, you know, the bracket was obviously rigged. And now you just stack it up the first.
What?
I'm not judging. Between Tokyo Drift and Furiously Dangerous, is that even a fucking question? Because we know that the real competition took place between Act of Fool and Tokyo Drift. You know what? It's surprising that both of these turned out to be from Tokyo Drift, because I honestly, in my heart of hearts, I don't think Tokyo Drift is the best movie of the franchise. Let me actually move on to ranking the movies, because this video is probably already like 3 hours long, and we don't need it to be longer. Okay, so let's start the process by identifying kind of the groups. The first one is movies that I hate with a passion, and it's obviously Fast X. I want to say it's Fast 9 too. This is just, you're doing too much. I don't like this. I do like a little bit of extra. I do like a little bit of extravaganza, if you may. But this is just too much of a thing that is not good. The Fate of the Furious, like also absolute ass, because the whole, oh my god, we've got this villain with a deep philosophy thing, and the philosophy in question is just being an incel who like goes on Reddit. Uninspired. Let's dub the second category exactly that, uninspired. The sixth one, very uninspired. The seventh one, I could have hated it with a fiery passion, however, let's just confront the reality. Like, Paul Walker died midway through the shoot. What the fuck were they supposed to do? You know, they were just trying to do their best, and their best was not enough. And I would also say the fourth, Fast and Furious, also very uninspired. Hobbs and Shaw, let's also put it in this category. I didn't care for it. And then the third category is going to be movies that are actually like okay for the franchise, kind of good, The Usual Suspects. And then we'll start from here and go through the categories. I can appreciate how iconic the first Fast and Furious movie is. However, it's just simply not good, especially when going against these heavyweights. Fast 5 is the best of the franchise. Might be a controversial take, but I do not care. And then Too Fast, Too Furious, because obviously I'm biased and bisexuality is real, and I do love a fair bit of cringe representation for me. Then Tokyo Drift, and then The Fast and the Furious. Then moving on to uninspired things, I'd say that Hobbs and Shaw is the best out of the uninspired crowd. Is it good? No. But is it like bad? Also no. Then let's do the fourth movie, because it's not the biggest offender of my senses. Then number 6 and number 7, because number 7 obviously sucks as the most as a movie out of this category. Out of these ones, I want to say that Fast 9 was probably the least sucky. Then I'm gonna put Fast X, because even though it pissed me off, it didn't piss me off that royally. And then The Fate of the Furious. This is the biggest offender. I hate this movie with a passion. So yeah, this is the list. Let me give you a look closer. And with that, the Fast and Furious extravaganza comes to an end. Like, subscribe, and remember to punch your local blue-eyed freak cop. And of course,
stay fast and stay furious.